few more seconds. It's that opposite leg that's not making contact. Straight. Please straighten that leg out. Yeah? Check in. Adjust. 4. Breathe. 2. Carefully come up. Yeah. Are you itching for a push-up? Monica, I'm itching for a push-up. Not even 30 seconds. Give me 20. So if you want to stick with just the knee tuck, that's fine. Round that back. Strong plank. You want to add that push-up. Hello. All the way down. Why? Because you're not running them straight. Pick one. Quick in and out. Oh yeah. Give me 2 to 3 more reps. Good job. Set up. Walk your feet out a bit. Bring that leg across that body. So you're here. 20 seconds. Quick in and out. You can alternate slow, pause, or move them. Constant move. Yes? Good job. Woo! Sit back. Towel off if you need to. Yes? Great job. Best part right here. I actually hear this a lot when I used to teach all live up in person. This is the best part of the workout. The actual stretch. So when you're ready, shift the hips, butt back. Child's pose. If you need a towel off, grab a drink. Please take it down. Tight back. You're gonna come onto those forearms. Shift that weight forward. Cobra. Lift that heart, lift that chest. No issues with that back. Slide your hands right next to that chest. Set up. Lift that heart. Look up. Breathe. Yes. Great work, you guys. Appreciate you all jumping in. Cross training. Switching up your workout game. Yes? Woo. Shift the hips, butt back again. Right back into that plank. Calf stretch. Sit back. Bring that heel down. Breathing into the nose. Exhale. Other side. Hit the switches. Calf stretch. Things to be mindful of to do, especially after your cardio workout. Maybe a little bit after you've warmed up thoroughly, right? I'm not a fan of stretching on a cold body. Stretch always when your body is warm. Make your way up. Hips. Inhale up. Nice and tall. Lengthen the spine. You're going to press that lower back. Push those hips forward. Look up. Draw the elbows back. And down. So you're feeling this in the hips, abs, chest, and shoulders. Yes? Breathing into the nose. Exhale. Carefully release. Walk the legs apart a bit here. You're going to bend those knees. Inhale up. Taking the arms behind you. Open up. Switch up. Bend those knees. Arms straight up. Head to the floor. Oh, yeah. Good job. From here, shake your head no and yes. Wiggle those toes. Breathing in. Lift those hands up a little bit higher if you can. Carefully release those arms when you're ready. Walk your feet out. Round that back. Grab the hamstrings. Pull up. Mainly feeling this in the back Drop that chin. Feel the stretch a bit more on those shoulders here, right? Jumping rope, plank work. Lift up. Requires the shoulders to activate and work. Yes? Breathe and reach. Exhale to one side, obliques. I appreciate you all jumping in and working out with me today. Be sure to slide this video in someone's DM. They're trying to build their cardio endurance. Yes? Release, nice and tall. Inhale up. Exhale. Legs are straight, hamstring stretch. Bend those knees, inhale up. I appreciate you all. Looking forward to seeing you all soon. Give me two more. Nice and tall, lengthen. Exhale, last one. Inhale up and release. You rock.
Hello everyone, I'm Natalia Bilbao, and here's what's happening in LA this week. When you ask people about what makes for a good quality of life, most of us don't think about the problem of noise pollution. That was the result for neighborhoods adjacent to the Los Angeles International Airport when flight patterns were changed without notice. City Attorney Mike Feuer filed and recently won a lawsuit on behalf of the residents who had a right to know.
We were getting complaints from West Adams, Mid-City, the central part of Los Angeles, about people feeling that suddenly their lives were being disrupted, often very seriously, by airplane noise. Noise that they said they hadn't experienced before. And they were asking us what we could do to help them. And so we began to look into what might be going on, and that led us to file this litigation. There are two big things at stake here. One is the basic quality of life that our residents have. We're fighting to make that quality of life as strong as it can be. But there's something else going on too, and that is our residents have to have a voice. In this case, those two issues come together because the residents of the city of Los Angeles and the city as a whole didn't have the opportunity to weigh in before significant changes were made to where planes would fly over Los Angeles. That's what's at stake here. And that's what the court said. The court said that the Federal Aviation Administration that controls these flight patterns had failed to take into account input from our residents and the city, hadn't given us an opportunity to weigh in before they made important decisions. That's what this case is about, is should the FAA be accountable for following basic federal environmental law? And the answer is absolutely. And I'm very pleased that the federal court saw it our way and said that, in fact, those environmental rules both need to be followed and were not followed by the FAA in this case. And so now our residents will have that voice, our city will have that voice, and I'm very proud of that. Our office needs, at its core, to be standing up for the residents of the city of Los Angeles, and this is an example of that kind of work.
City Attorney Mike Feuer recently announced that he will once again be challenging the FAA in court on behalf of residents. This time, Mr. Feuer will file a lawsuit over alleged violations of the environmental review process at Burbank Airport. In conjunction with National Summer Learning Week, U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona attended a field day event as part of the Push for the Ready, Set initiative. The initiative was conceived by the Creative Artists Agency Foundation and other education nonprofits to promote volunteering and mentoring as a way to support students who suffered learning and relational losses due to the pandemic. Mostly for the kids, it was just good fun. Take a look.
Good morning, everyone. Isn't it wonderful to be at Fairfax High School and to be back on a campus? Whoa!
Ready Set is a coalition powered by CAA, Mentor, and AmeriCorps with a simple call to action. Be a part of America's Student Support Network.
For 26 years, CAA has been committed to supporting public education. We believe that through our resources and our networks and our relationships that we have the power to do social good. So we decided to create Ready Set, which is a call to action to be a part of America's Student Support Network.
They can go to getreadyset.org and they can find out about opportunities to mentor, to tutor, or to serve in AmeriCorps, and they can do that by putting in their zip code. It's that easy.
When I was told what's happening here, I was just like, I love this.
Mentorships are so important. I am where I am today because of the incredible mentors who showed me my potential and helped me navigate systems and open doors.
Bueno, es nuestra responsabilidad y para mí un orgullo ser parte del gobierno para poder ayudar a los estudiantes, las familias que fueron afectados de una forma seria por la pandemia, especialmente la comunidad latina que sufrimos bastante. Vamos a seguir adelante, sabemos que lo podemos hacer juntos y vacúnense si no lo han hecho ya.
We owe it to them to be able to wrap our arms, our hearts, our minds around them.
We all have to lock arms and do the very best to get our students re-engaged, reconnected, and not just with academics, but really with each other.
Kids need our support, and we need to volunteer. It feels really, really good to volunteer as well.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi joined U.S. Representatives Jimmy Gomez, Judy Chu, Karen Bass, and other local leaders in celebrating the new expanded child tax credit. The event was held to help inform Angelenos about the scope of the expansion and to put a human face on all the good that will come from it.
Working class families continue to struggle to pay the bills and rebuild their savings. But starting today, millions of families in Los Angeles and across the country are going to get some more help. They're going to start receiving payments through the enhanced child tax credit that amount to hundreds of dollars each month through the end of 2021.
This is a day when it's a promise fulfilled. President Biden in his campaign said that help is on the way. Today, help is here.
Y estoy aquí presente para apoyar a la agencia ya que nos ayudó en lo más necesitado durante la pandemia, pues. Tuvimos recaídas bastantes referente, no a enfermedad, pero sí en pagos de rentas, comida, en la alimentación, pues. También nos sentimos agradecidos del señor Jimmy Gómez y Nancy, ya que son es un apoyo que nos han dado ellos también.
Child tax credit has been one of the most effective tools Congress has had to support working families because it's refundable, meaning that you don't have to owe taxes in order to collect it. Collecting the child tax credit will not affect SNAP benefits, Medicaid, TANF cash assistance, SSI, or other public benefits.
Once legislation is done, once it is signed, then we have to make sure that everybody knows that it's there, that that check is coming, not to be afraid when $300 shows up in their account. It wasn't a mistake.
When people ask me the three most important issues facing the Congress, I always say the same thing. Our children, our children, our children.
According to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, in California alone, over 7.8 million children aged 17 or younger are expected to benefit from the expanded tax credits. Residents who were adversely affected by the planned detonation of illegal fireworks weeks ago are still dealing with a loss or displacement from their homes and any semblance of normalcy. That's why staff members from Council District 9 and local relief efforts like IsraAid have been on the ground continuing to offer support and resources for as long as this community needs them.
Since this unfortunate incident, the councilman's office and our staff has been on the ground every day assisting those residents with whatever resources and services. For those residents that are currently unable to go back into their homes, we're working with a local restaurant vendor to provide them with delivered meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and we plan on doing that until we get folks back into their homes.
The communities here have been really facing a lot. They were at home at 7:30 at night cooking dinner, and then all of a sudden they hear an explosion. They come home, they don't have electricity.
Hola, buenos días.
We're happy to be able to bring these fresh food items and packaged goods and hygiene items so that these families can come back to some sort of normalcy during these next few weeks as kind of they go back home. ¿Cuántas personas en tu familia?
Pues me hace sentir bien que están pensando en nosotros, que estamos afectados, que fuimos afectados, que no nos están desamparando porque realmente es grande la necesidad, porque uno está acostumbrado pues a que ya tiene uno, el fin de semana compra su marqueta y ya tiene uno pero ya ir al día pues es mucho más difícil, entonces pues esta ayuda es apoyo, es un apoyo.
We will be going around the houses, and last time we just put it on their porch in the shade for those people who weren't available today. They could contact us, my email, Farah, F-A-R-A-H, @israaid.org, and we could potentially see if we could make a distribution happen for them. Our hearts go out with the families that have been affected. We've had a lot of families come up to us and thank us deeply, and we know that it's going to people who are most vulnerable and in need, and we're happy to be able to provide it.
This is an update on the information gathered in the aftermath of that catastrophic explosion that occurred on Wednesday evening, June 30th, in the 700 block of East 27th Street, when the department's bomb squad attempted to safely detonate some illegal explosives that were found among a large amount of illegal consumer fireworks. I'm also grateful that this incident did not result in any loss of life, including the countless community members who were senselessly exposed to the clear and present danger created by the alleged criminal actions of Mr. Arturo Sija when he chose to store more than 16 tons of fireworks and illegal explosives at his house on a residential street. During the removal process of the packaged consumer fireworks, the bomb squad located a significant quantity of illegal explosives in various locations at the residence. The bomb squad determined that these could not be safely transported from the scene due to their condition. The LAPD bomb squad, with the approval of the Newton Area Incident Commander, attempted to render them safe through the use of the department's Total Containment Vessel, known as a TCV, while at the scene. At 7:37 Wednesday night, the detonation resulted in the catastrophic failure of the TCV, causing the blast effect that injured 17 community members and a significant property damage to the surrounding area. Based on the information gathered to this point, it's believed that the net explosive weight placed into the TCV exceeded its rated capacity. This preliminary conclusion is based on the maximum capacity of the TCV.
Fireworks in general and homemade pyrotechnic explosives in particular are the most dangerous items that law enforcement and bomb squad technicians come across when it comes to rendering the items safe. Know this, ATF is committed to getting the right answers in this investigation. Once the report is complete by the NRT, it will be peer reviewed at NCEDR and it will be submitted to LAPD. It will be a totally transparent process and ATF is not going to hold anything back.
I want to personally express my apologies to every resident, business operator, and customer that was traumatically impacted by this incident. I'm sorry that this occurred.
A gun trafficking strike force comes to LA. Streets LA brings the Cool Neighborhoods program to NoHo, and Union Station marks the reopening of their beloved piano. These stories up next on City Beat.
The U.S. Department of Justice is slated to launch a new gun trafficking strike force here in Los Angeles. The purpose of the strike force is to help strengthen efforts by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives to stem the flow of firearms from across state lines. These weapons may ultimately be used in violent crimes. City Attorney Mike Feuer was quoted in a tweet as saying, "This action by the Biden administration is timely and needed with gun violence surging by 70% in LA for the first 4 months of the year." Other cities that will receive funding for a gun trafficking strike force include New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and the San Francisco Bay Area. This action comes from the Biden-Harris White House in response to the national rise in the number of homicides. The Los Angeles Bureau of Street Services is bringing its Cool Neighborhoods program to North Hollywood. Streets LA will be using cool surfacing, a technology validated by NASA Jet Propulsion Lab and developed with researchers at UCLA, USC, and Arizona State. The reflective treatment has proven to decrease surface temperatures by about 10 degrees Fahrenheit in some Los Angeles neighborhoods. One study estimated that using cool surfacing citywide could save Los Angeles $15 million in annual cooling costs. In addition to North Hollywood, Streets LA will be installing cool pavement to over 200 blocks across 8 LA neighborhoods, starting in mid-August. The beloved piano at Union Station is reopening for the summer, and Metro Art Presents will mark the celebration with a virtual performance series called Play On. The virtual pop-up will highlight piano performances from a diverse array of Los Angeles-based talent. Musicians featured in the series will include keyboard maestro Brandon Coleman, emerging Arab and Muslim American composer Danya Gerard, multi-genre keyboardist Jonathan Montez, and many more. Performances will air nightly at 7 p.m. across Metro, Metro Art Presents, and Union Station social media platforms. For more information, visit metro.net/about/art.
Now it's time to move on to a lighter subject. The historic 2nd Street Tunnel in downtown Los Angeles is nearly 100 years old, and it is finally getting a makeover. The good folks over at the Bureau of Street Lighting invited Channel 35 down to see how they are shining in new lights on an iconic LA landmark. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
A brief history of the 2nd Street Tunnel is that it was built in 1924, making it almost 100 years old. The tunnel is located in and runs under Bunker Hill in downtown Los Angeles. It's featured in many movies, TV shows, commercials, car commercials. I think from 2006 to 2008, it was featured in 73 car commercials. In terms of remodeling or redesigning of the lighting, it was a fun and exciting process for us. We pushed the creative bounds and knowing that it would be viewed by millions of people across the world. The east side entrance has the more historical arch-shaped structure and is covered with white tiles on the side. The existing lights have teardrop features down the center of the arch. The west entrance lighting was redesigned with color tubes and aesthetics featuring color-changing fixtures. The project for the redesign of the 2nd Street Tunnel took about a year and a half, from pre-design to design and construction. Some of the benefits of the new LED lights for the city are the ability to play with color and obviously significant cost savings and extended life of the lights. We do have an LED conversion program. The city is about 92% done with converting city streetlights to LED streetlights. In the tunnel specifically, we have 270 LED lights that light this tunnel.
It bears repeating that you can find out about almost anything you need at the library, from fiction books and magazines to resource information and free internet. And you get access to all that through this one little card.
I really like the library because there's so many books that we can check out.
The Los Angeles Public Library card, we call it the best card in town. It's free to all residents of Los Angeles, And what you get with it is access to the millions of titles in all the 73 libraries throughout the system. It's free and it covers all of your learning and entertainment needs, and it's a great deal, and it makes you part of our Los Angeles Public Library community. You can obviously use it in person to check out books, but you can also use it from home on your computer or on your phone and log into the website, and then you can access ebooks, audiobooks, streaming movies, streaming music, all kinds of online programs, online classes. You can get tutored and homework help in English and Spanish, help with your resumes. You can read newspapers and magazines online. It's an amazing amount of stuff you can do for free from home with your library card. They're all at your fingertips 24/7. It's easy to get your library card. You just walk into any library branch, show them your ID, fill out a little form, and in minutes we sign you up and give you one of these. Also, this is a great time of year to get your library card and sign up for our Summer Reading Challenge, which we do at all branches throughout the city. You can sign up, and the more minutes you read, the more points you get, and you get prizes along the way. People of all ages can do it. It helps you keep up on your summer reading. At the end, when you complete the challenge, you get entered into our grand prize drawing to win.
Get your library card.
So visit your local public library. You can find it at lapl.org.
Although many of us don't think of art as a business, essentially being an artist is like being your own small business. And like every small business, this past year without in-person customer contact has been grueling. That's why the organization ArtShare LA is doing its part to help reconnect the two. Channel 35 was on hand to check out the Comeback Festival. Take a look.
So today is all about coming back together as a community of artists, of art lovers, of patrons, of citizens of Los Angeles. We put on the Comeback Fest, which is 120 artists being featured here on the street today, from vendors and crafters to dancers, poets, musicians on the stage, artists in our gallery space, and filmmakers in our theater.
Coming from 2 years of the lockdown and the social distancing and all those things, it's the art is showing in the virtually, but I still feel is people has to be seeing the art by themselves for the impact his art has. It's not about seeing in the art in the computer screen and mobile screen. It's coming in person and experience that's a different impact to the people as an psychologically.
Just like all other businesses, we all had to find different ways to, make our businesses thrive, right? So if it was done during social media and other ways, we had to get creative. So it was a difficult way for us, just like everyone else, to try to adapt. But now we're back. We're really happy to be able to be doing live art again, doing live performances again, and that's again what this Comeback Festival is all about.
It says a lot about the community, that we're really resilient and that we're full of life and nothing can hold us down. And as long as we're being responsible, I think we're okay.
ArtShare Los Angeles has been around for 20 years, so we have all of the places that you need to find us. We have a website, artsharela.org. Please reach out to us. We're also always allowing artists to submit their work to us through our website. So stay connected there, stay connected for all the performances, and we'll welcome you back anytime. We're also open to the public Wednesday through Sunday from 1 to 5, so come on through. We always have something to see.
In our feature story this week, we talk with a third-generation LA native who has dedicated her life to positive change through public service. Oh, and making history. That's just a bonus. Maria Hall-Brown sits down for a heart-to-heart with LA County Supervisor Holly Mitchell.
Well, established about 150 years ago, the LA Board of Supervisors is the largest governing board of its kind at the local level in the country. And today I am delighted to be joined by one of the 5 supervisors, the newest to the Board of Supervisors. In fact, hello, Holly Mitchell.
Thank you so much for having me.
Historic. This entire Board of Supervisors is historic. 5 women sitting in a position in which there's been mostly men, but a collection of both men and women. From your perspective, has that actually changed the feeling at the table?
And the interesting thing is we haven't been at the table together. So I've had to onboard in this new amazing opportunity, this new very important position in the middle of a public health pandemic. But I will say this, tokenism is almost as bad as not being present at all.
Correct.
And the research showed that if you can get 3 women on a board, now you're cooking with grease. I can't imagine what Supervisor Molina must have faced as the first woman and the only woman on that board all those years.
Right. So what are some of the things that you are all 5 focusing on right now? Where are some of your priorities?
We are focusing on an LA County recovery that's based in equity. All of us are clear that this virus was equal opportunity, and yet there are some communities that suffered at disproportionate rates. Women suffered significantly in terms of job loss. Given our dual role with kids being out of school and childcare being closed, we know women have suffered. So I'm proud of the Women and Girls Initiative that the board established before I got here, and really focused on what we have to do to help women and girls recover in an equitable format. And so I look forward to, as a board, as we deliberate our county budget this year and the American Rescue Act funds, about how we make sure that all of LA County recovers. And that's going to require a disproportionate investment in some communities over others.
All right, at the risk of actually sounding like somebody who's asking you a question during a campaign here, I'm going to ask it anyways. What do you hope to achieve as a SOUP?
As I identified people to come join me on this journey, these young staffers, we spent a lot of time talking about establishing our office culture. And it was important to me that I was creating opportunity and space and hiring people who shared my commitment and passion for creating a second supervisorial district that we all are excited about raising our children in and growing old in. I'm a 3rd-generation native, and so Los Angeles means the world to me. And so, my goal ultimately is to be able to look back, hopefully, knock on wood, in 12 years, if I'm given the opportunity to serve, 3 full terms, and recognize that there is a 1st grader that entered school my first year who will be graduating from high school by year 12. What did we do in that 12-year span to create livable, walkable communities, to create more green space in her neighborhood, to make sure that she had the opportunity to enter a child care setting and a K-12 setting that fed her, that saw her, that supported her in meaningful ways, that she will be able to come back to her community if she so chooses and afford housing in her own community. Those are the kinds of visions I have for the 2nd District.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All kids are welcome to the library's Girls Who Code class. The Levitt LA Free Concert Series brings you a Selena tribute band, or join the LA Bio Blitz for a tour of Discovery Park. All this up next on Things to Do.
It's never too early for your kids to learn about everyday technologies that can help give them an edge in the future. That's why the Los Angeles Public Library is calling all coders grades 3 to 5 to join them for Girls Who Code Summer 2021 edition. Attend this free week-long summer camp to learn about coding using the kid-friendly platform Scratch. It is the mission of Girls Who Code to close the gender gap in technology and to change the image of what a programmer looks like and does. Girls Who Code runs from July 26th through July 30th at 3 p.m. Visit lapl.org/events to find registration information. Levitt LA is thrilled to invite Angelinos to celebrate the return of live music at MacArthur Park. The in-person concerts will once again transform MacArthur Park into an urban oasis, presenting free live music under the stars. This summer's lineup features international greats as well as LA's own superstar talents who perform a wide variety of genres, including cumbia, rock, soul, ska, mariachi, and more. On Saturday, July 31st, the office of Councilmember Gil Cedillo will sponsor the performance by Selenamos. a Los Angeles-based tribute band for Selena Quintanilla. For more information, visit levittlosangeles.org. Join the Playa Vista Branch Library for a guided tour and BioBlitz of Discovery Park. Learn all about the Bologna Wetlands, Los Angeles' last coastal wetland. The LA BioBlitz Tour of Discovery Park happens Thursday, July 29th, beginning at 3 p.m. If you wish to participate in the BioBlitz, just download the iNaturalist app on your phone before you arrive. All ages are welcome, don't miss out. And that's a look at some virtual things to do.
And that's it for this edition. I'm Natalia Bilbao, and from all of us here at LA This Week, thank you so much for joining us. A reminder that you can catch us online at lacitywiew.org, and we're also on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. See you next time for more LA This Week.
Members, if I can have you take a seat, please. We're about to start our meeting. Good morning and welcome to the Los Angeles City Council. Today is Wednesday, July 28th. I'm Nuri Martinez, the President of the City Council. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Blumenfield. Bonin. Buscaino. Cedillo. De Leon. De Leon. Harris Dawson. Koretz. Absent. Krikorian. Absent. Lee. Martinez.
Present.
O'Farrell. Price.
Present.
Rahman.
Here.
Ridley Thomas. Rodriguez.
Here.
13 members and a quorum, Madam President.
First order of business.
Approval of the minutes of July 1st, 2021.
Ms. Rodriguez moves and Mr. O'Farrell seconds next.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Lee moves and Mr. Harris Dawson seconds next.
Madam President, would council like all items to go forthwith today?
Without objection, that will be the order.
Madam President, there has been a request to hold item 18.
Okay, without objection. Next.
Items 1 through 5 are items noticed for public hearing. Items 6 through 13 are items for which public hearings have been held. Items 14 through 25 are items for which public hearings have not been held. Community impact statements have been submitted and posted for item 20, Council File Number 20-1376S1, by the Greater Cypress Park Neighborhood Council and the Mar Vista Community Council, as well as for item 24, Council File Number 21-0775, by the Lincoln Heights Neighborhood Council. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, without objection, those items are now before us. Members, do you want to call any of these items specials this morning? Mr. Price?
Madam President, call 24 special for amendment, please.
Item 24 is special for an amendment.
And Madam President, Mr. Price, I have the amendment. Would you like me to read it into the record?
Why don't we go ahead and read that into the record?
Okay, so it's a bit long, bear with me. It's to amend the recommendations to adopt the following additional recommendations. 3, authorizes city clerk to prepare, process, and execute the necessary documents and/or payments up to $700,000 with/to the Coalition for Responsible Community Development, CRCD, or any other agency or organization as appropriate, subject to the approval of the city attorney as to form, to immediately provide cleanup services, debris removal, assistance with interim living expenses and associated with residential displacement, and necessary repairs to the residences impacted by the blast on or about June 30th, 2021, and advance funding for these costs from the General City Purposes Fund number 100-56, account number 000452, which is CD9 Environmental Equity and Justice Fund. 4, authorize the Housing Department in collaboration with the Community Investment for Families Department, CIFD, to prepare, process, and execute the necessary documents and/or payments up to $463,000 with to ONNI, 888 Olive Street, LP, or any other agency or organization as appropriate, subject to approval of city attorney as to form, to immediately house those individuals displaced by the above described blast and transfer/advance up to $463,000 from General City Purposes Fund number 100-56, account number 000452, which is the CD9 Environmental Equity and Justice Fund, to the Housing Fund number 100-43, account number 003040, contractual services, subject to a schedule provided by the Chief Legislative Analyst for these costs. 5, instruct the City Administrative Officer, with the assistance from LAPD, Housing Department, CIFD, City Attorney, CLA, and any other relevant department, to report in the first financial status report with options to replenish the above identified funds advanced for the above purposes. 6, instruct the CAO and CLA, with assistance from the City Attorney, Emergency Management Department, and any other relevant department to report on protocols for addressing future similar events that take place in the city. And finally, 7, authorize the CLA to make any corrections, clarifications, or revisions to the above instructions, including any new instructions, in order to effectuate the intent of this motion, and including any corrections and changes to fund or account numbers. Said corrections, clarifications, or changes may be made orally, electronically, or by other means. Presented by Mr. Price, and I don't know who the second is.
Okay, Mr. Price, I would go ahead and second that. I'm sorry.
Oh, Rodriguez?
Ms. Rodriguez, thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't believe you had a second, that's why you were pointing at me.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Rodriguez to second that amendment. Any other items, Mr. Price? Mr. Ridley Thomas? Turn on his mic.
We're good. Thank you, Madam President. Item number 20, hope for discussion and clarification from the City Administrative Officer, please.
All right, thank you. Mr. Bonin? Item 20. Mr. Harris Dawson?
An amendment?
And I also have that if you'd like me to read it in.
Mr. City Attorney, go ahead and read that.
Sure. So the motion is to amend the item to make a technical correction to authorize the Planning Department to accept grant funds in the revised total amount of $35,000, inasmuch as Cal OHP increased the grant funding by an additional $5,000. Presented by Mr. Harris Dawson, and we need a second. I don't have it listed.
Mr. Harris Dawson, do you have a second on that amendment? Mr. De Leon? Okay, members, are there any other items that you wish to call special? Okay, seeing. Madam Clerk, which available items can we go ahead and vote on?
Thank you. We can vote on items 6 through 9 and 11 through 13.
Okay, let's go ahead and call the roll on those items. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Blumenfield. Oh, I'm sorry.
Blumenfield, aye.
Go ahead and open the roll. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Okay, let's go ahead and move into public comment. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. As indicated on the agenda, members of the public wishing to offer public comment should call 669-254-5252 and use meeting ID number 160-535-8466 and then press pound. Then press pound again when prompted for participant ID. Once admitted into the meeting, press star 9 to request to speak. When it is your turn to speak, an automated Zoom voice will ask you to press star 6 to unmute. Let me repeat, call 669-254-5252 and use meeting ID number 160-535-8466 and then press pound. Then press pound again when prompted for participant ID. Once admitted into the meeting, press star 9 to request to speak. When it is your turn to speak, an automated Zoom voice will ask you to press star 6 to unmute. Thank you.
To members of the public calling in, when it's your turn to speak, please state which of the agenda items you'd like to speak on. You have 1 minute per item to speak, up to 3 minutes total, and 1 minute for general public comment if you wish. Speak on the items before beginning general public comment. We'll tell you when your time's up. When speaking on the agenda items, you must be on topic. Our goal is to get through as many speakers as we can. If you're not on topic, or if we can't tell whether you're on topic, you'll get one brief warning from me or the president. If you don't immediately get clearly on topic, or again stray off topic, you'll forfeit the rest of your time and we'll move on to the next speaker. We'll take 30 minutes total public comment, and the items open for public comment are items 1 through 5, item 10, and then 14 to 25. So that's 1 to 5, 10, and 14 to 25. For members of the public calling in to speak, we have a slightly new procedure. When it's your turn to speak, an automated message from Zoom will prompt you to press *6 to unmute yourself. If you don't do so right away, council staff will prompt you once more. If you don't immediately unmute yourself when prompted by staff, you'll forfeit the rest of your time and we'll move on to the next speaker. Finally, we understand you may be listening on channel 35, a computer or other device. If you are, please turn down the volume on the other devices immediately when it's your turn to speak. Because of feedback and a time delay between the live meeting and the broadcast, it will cause a lot of confusion if you continue to listen on your other devices. Thank you very much, and with that, Madam President, we are ready to begin public comment.
Let's go ahead and take the first caller.
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
My name is Chris Larson, and I would like to speak on agenda item number 20.
Sure, you have a minute.
I run the bid in Hollywood. My name is Chris Larson, and I walk to work each day from my home in Council District 4. When properly maintained and regulated, our sidewalks play a critical role in providing communities with the essential public good of accessibility. Unfortunately, since the suspension of 4118 and 5611 last year, our clean team now removes an additional 20 tons of trash, waste, and debris each month from sidewalks around Hollywood. We have entire blocks that are better described as blockades, as no one can get through them and are thus forced onto the streets. The negative externalities of unchecked, sprawling encampments have resulted in embarrassing, untenable conditions and an unsustainable burden that has been shifted to organizations like BIDS across the city. LA needs regulations like these to ensure that we protect accessibility and connectivity for all Angelinos. I encourage you to support this item today.
Thank you, Speaker.
Next speaker.
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
Hi, yes, this is Richie Serdenko from the People City Council. I'd like to speak on 2024 and general public comment, please.
Sure, so you have 2 minutes for the item, followed by 1 minute for general public comment. Please begin.
Yeah, so the last caller was talking about number 20 and how it's been so tough during the pandemic. You have to be honest about what number 20 is. You guys all want to criminalize, homelessness in Los Angeles, basically saying that people, poor people just existing will be criminalized. And we're deeply disappointed by Mark Ridley Thomas, who we thought was pushing this right to housing and was potentially on the right path. But after taking meetings with Jeffrey Katzenberg and just like the rest of the mayoral candidates and Paul Koretz, you guys are taking policy advice from a billionaire. The people of Los Angeles aren't stupid. We know what's going on. This law unfairly paints unhoused people as a threat to children and the public. The lack of appropriate housing is the real threat to public safety. I've been down on the Venice Boardwalk in the middle of the night for the past month or so, and the cops are moving people from 2 to 5 a.m. How the city is handling the homelessness crisis is not appropriate. And if you all think that you're doing a good job, you should take a long look in the mirror. Nuri Martinez doing that press conference with Mayor Garcetti yesterday. The audacity you have as a landlord and someone who makes $200,000 a year to say that we're normalizing encampments simply because people are asking. You guys maintain the services that you actually do provide for the 40,000 plus unhoused Angelinos. Nuri, I don't know if this is all in your head or if it, you're no one is buying your act. You're not doing a good job, and we see right through you. For 24, this is what LAPD does. They're violent. They're never held accountable. They get to blow up people's neighborhoods. You guys will vote to give them $3 billion. You guys won't touch their budget. You guys are afraid of the LAPPL and Jamie McBride. It's fucking cowardly. It's really, really bad. I'll yield the rest of my time. Happy birthday to Councilmember Rahman. The people still believe in you. You inspired a lot of people in this city, and happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Before we move on to the next speaker, let me just say I've got a substitute for item 15 and item 18. So let me just read that in. So for item 15, the motion is I move that $120 be transferred appropriated from the mayor's portion of the Heritage Month celebrations and special events line item and the General Purposes Fund number 100-56, the General Services Fund number 100-40, account number 1070, that's salaries as needed, for services in connection with the mayor's special recognition of Angel City Football Club Day at City Hall on July 1, 2021, including the illumination of City Hall. That one is by Mr. Price, and I believe Mr. Ridley is Mr. Ridley Thomas the seconder on that? Okay. Thank you. For item 18, substitute, I move that on the subject to the approval of mayor, $120 be transferred from the General City Purposes Fund number 100-56, account number 0705, which is the CD5 Community Services Fund, to the General Services Fund number 100-40, account number 1070, which is salaries as needed, for the services in connection with the CD5 special recognition of Israel Independence Day on April 14, 2021 at City Hall, including the illumination of City Hall, presented by Mr. Koretz and seconded by Mr. Blumenfield. Thank you for letting me cut in, and we can go back to the public speakers. So, next speaker.
Next speaker, please.
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
Hello, my name is Daniel Rodriguez. I would like to speak on item 20.
Sure, you have a minute, please.
Hello, I'm a resident in Pacoima. First and foremost, thank you, Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez, for voting yes on item 20 before, and I urge you to continue to support this motion. We want the beautification to come back into our city. Thank you.
Is that it, speaker? If so, we will move on to the next speaker. Thank you.
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
Hi, I'd like to give a comment on item 20, please.
Sure, you have a minute. Please go ahead, speaker.
Hello, council members. I would like to kind of piggyback on what a previous caller was saying about how this council is not fooling anybody with this act. I would believe that a council such as yours has even been discussed in the Bible. It says, what does it profit, my brethren, if someone says he has faith but does not have work? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister is naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you says to them, depart in peace, be warmed and filled, but you do not give them the things which are needed for the body, what does it profit? Thus, also by faith itself, if it does not have works, is dead. And this is how the council is constantly approaching policy in this city, faith without works. You guys will come up with a policy solution for a city that doesn't exist. You guys will come up with criminalization before housing. We have, as Mike Bonin's social housing motion states, 500,000 units short of affordable housing in this city, and yet we are going for criminalization before it.
Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
Yes, hi. My name is Simon Mankus, and I wanted to speak on item 20.
Please go ahead, sir. You have a minute.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, City Council. I'm in Paul Krikorian's district, and I'm on the board of a condominium building. There's a school across from us. I've also talked to the principal of the school. There are homeless people, campers camped in front of the school, but she feels that her hands are tied. We all feel our hands are tied to do anything about it. Children are feeling unsafe. People are feeling unsafe in my building to walk around the neighborhood. And I believe previous speakers do not speak for most Angelenos. We are a compassionate city. The city council, you city council members are compassionate as well, but there has to be a balance between a full heart for people that do not have homes, and also a full heart for our community and our sense of neighborhood and safety. And we have to do something.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you.
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Renee Grace Rodriguez, and I'd like to speak on general comment and item 20.
You have 2 minutes, one for each. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I am a certified bankruptcy specialist attorney who provides pro bono services to homeless people and people who are getting back on their feet, recovering from alcohol and drug addiction. The families I represent who are working to get back on their feet, who file bankruptcy, will not be given the fresh start that bankruptcy promises because of the enforcement of this ordinance. You are going to end up levying fines against the very people who have the least ability to pay, and give them no viable option to be able to have any relief from those fines or penalty. You are going to kick them, and you're going to make sure you put your knee on their neck. Let's put blame where blame belongs. The overdevelopment of luxury housing has expanded, and the unhoused population has expanded this unhoused population. And you have not done nearly enough of what has been required to remedy this situation. There have not been enough beds put up. There have not been the services provided. And now you want to sweep people under a rug. You want to hide them from public view so you can hide the shame, which is of your own creation. This is a travesty. By sweeping men and women and children off the streets, stripping them of their belongings, and barely doing enough to create services and housing or spaces where they can use their tents while they're waiting for housing you claim exists. And I referenced to John Lee, who told this council last time that he had 60 beds, yet 2 public records requests he can't produce a single document that references these beds. This is a lie that you are telling the community. You are doing this right ahead of the next, getting ready to campaign for your offices again. You are pandering to voters, and you are leaving the rest of the people out on the cold and out in jail and fined where they can't even get the relief. This is a travesty. You must vote no on this particular ordinance on number 20. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Next speaker.
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
Good morning. My name is Johnny Andrade. I'm the president of the South Central Neighborhood Council, and I'd like to go ahead and speak on the public comment at number 24.
Sure. So you have a minute for each. Please go ahead, Speaker.
So personally, I'd like to go ahead and commend and thank Councilmember Price for the situation that happened on 27th Street, the explosion we all know about. His immediate response to the community that we both represent and within our boundaries has been impeccable. His staff has been there throughout the evenings, every day, and we even hosted a town hall meeting with us to demand answers of what caused this explosion. We, the community and the neighborhood council, we support council member with a decision to make the Coalition for Responsible Community Development the response location, which is the YMCA, and the holder to support the community when it comes to the funds. Councilmember Price, thank you for all you've done and all you're doing for us, especially for an area like ours, South Central Los Angeles, that has been historically left.
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
Yes, my name is Mark Brady. I'd like to speak on item 20, please.
You have a minute. Please begin.
Thank you, council members. My name is Mark Brady. I am the property manager of the Barnesville Shopping Plaza on Vermont Ave between Hollywood and Sunset Boulevards. I'm speaking on behalf of over 200 people, the owners, the managers, and the employees of the shopping center, where there are 26 tenants. I'm also speaking on behalf of the owners of the property. I want to express how essential it is to adopt the anti-camping ordinance. As you may or may not be aware, Vermont Ave has become overrun with tents. I've been a property manager there for the past 7 years. In the last year and a half, the violence has been incredible, not only to the property, but more importantly to the managers and employees of the tenants. Most of the managers and owners of the businesses are women and minorities. They do not feel safe. The shoplifting and theft has been incredible. And as you may or may not be aware, most of the stores in the shopping center are mom and pop stores. They're not big chains, except for John's, Rite Aid, and Fallas. Most of them are small mom and pop businesses owned by women, as a matter of fact. They do not feel safe. Several of them have been attacked, in the stores, mind you. Several of the employees have been attacked in the parking lot walking to and from work and in the stores themselves. The drug use, the open drug use in front of stores, even in stores, has increased. And that is directly related to the tents popping up, becoming more and more prevalent on Vermont Ave in front of the shopping center. In addition, customers have expressed to me and to the managers of the stores that they do not feel safe going to the stores. These small businesses are being killed. They're hanging on by dear life. For those who have run businesses, knows how important it is to have customers. It's an ideal.
Thank you, Speaker.
Caller ending in, please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on. Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on. Caller, please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on. Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
Yeah, my name is Stuart Waldman. I am president of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, VICA. I am calling on item 20 and general public comment.
You have a minute for each. Please begin.
Thank you. We are calling in support of the anti-camping ordinance. VICA strongly supported measures H and HHH. We've supported reasonable supportive housing. We have fought to build more affordable housing and market rate housing where others have just said no. We have worked with nonprofits to help those experiencing homelessness, but this situation has become a crisis. No one should be living on the streets of Los Angeles. Families should be able to safely walk down any street in the city and not have to move into the roadway. The disabled should not be blocked. Our parks should be clean and usable for recreation. And businesses should not have their storefronts blocked by trash and other belongings. This crisis has gone too far and too long and must be fixed. This ordinance is a first step. You must adopt this policy to ensure we can create a safe environment for the entire community. If this ordinance passes, the business community will have better opportunities to bring their employees back to the workplace and help bring back much needed jobs and revenue back to our city's economy. The homelessness crisis has gotten worse, not better, and there is no confidence that there's a plan to solve this issue. Economic recovery and pandemic relief will not happen for our community and small businesses until we take major steps in making sure that they are supported in their recovery efforts. This is an equity issue for all Angelenos. We must ensure we protect everyone from all walks of life. For these reasons, VICA supports the passage of this ordinance.
Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
Sharon Varghese, item 20 in general public comment.
You have a minute for each. Please begin.
Thank you. Several of you on the council have pointed to how deep and dedicated outreach in your districts recently has worked to get people off the streets and into interim housing without criminalization. At the same time, Lawson has reminded us that there is not enough low-income and affordable housing to exit people to from interim shelters. Councilmember Buscaino's staff have already been publicly discussing how excited they are to abuse the power that you would give them today by, quote, posting 1 million signs. This is banishment and displacement and nothing more. As history has shown, he will abuse any power given to him because he is a bully, and that is what bullies do. You do not need a stick to get people out of homelessness. Homelessness is the stick. We have tried criminalization and displacement for over 100 years in Los Angeles. We need to develop trust over time and real services. Just fines are not fine. They result in perpetual cycles of poverty and displacement. Fines turn into warrants, turn into jail, turn into lost job opportunities and housing discrimination. Please vote no on this item. I have months-old unfilled LA Hop requests because caseworkers are stretched beyond comprehension. I have unhoused neighbors without access to healthcare who absolutely want services that do not show up. You do not need enforcement to provide trash cans and regular trash pickup. You don't need it to provide toilets and build public bathrooms. Previous callers in this council continue to paint the existence of homeless people as a reason for fear by itself when people who are unhoused are far more likely to be victims of crime and the use of police force than people who are housed. When this council has the power to provide solutions to the actual problems through things like regular scheduled trash pickups, bathrooms, and services, it is a complete failure to turn back again to a solution that has failed us for decades. It is time to invest in solutions that work, that we know work, and that we are seeing work now. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
Jessica Rogers with the Pacific Palisades Residents Association and Envision LA. I'd like to speak on item number 20, please. Hello.
Hi. Which items do you want to speak on, Speaker?
Item number 20.
Oh, sorry. Please begin. Minute.
I don't know if you heard my name, Jessica Rogers, PPRA Envision LA. Good morning, City Council. I'm glad we'll be voting in today an ordinance that will allow us to regain some public safety on our streets. It's a good start. We know, however, that there's still a lot more to do. If you're unfortunate to have a council member like mine, you'll still need some, you'll not see public safety on your streets. We need to be very vigilant of who we elect and who's not doing the job they're voted in for. We need an ordinance that requires tents down during daylight with limitations on personal goods that can be kept on public property, as well as no blocking of sidewalks and no camping on public property if you are offered an alternative shelter. It is beyond time to restore public safety on our streets and to tackle our humanitarian crisis from its source. Focusing on home housing only and taking away public recreational areas are not appropriate solutions. And you know what is. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
My name is Connie Gonzalez, and I would like to speak on item 20 and general public comment.
You have a minute for each. Please begin, Speaker.
I'm calling on behalf of Arlita and the community and our neighbors. I am a mother, a resident, a homeowner, a taxpayer, and the reason I'm calling is in support of item 20. I would like for my representative, President Noreen Martinez, to vote yes on this measure. The only thing that I am asking to be amended on this measure is accountability. There is no accountability other than a citation and a 14-day notice. We need to hold these people accountable who are deciding to use public streets as a restroom, as a home. If they refuse a place or a shelter to go to, or any housing steps you guys have taken measure for, there should be viable options. A viable option can be, hey, you know what? You don't have money to pay the citation, so let's give you community service. Come back and serve the community and start fresh. Another viable option is once they serve the community service and you give them that option, how about you give them a rehab option where they can actually go into a program and use the rehab. If that's one of their addictions or if they need mental help, then they can go into a mental health institution that can show them proper care so that then they can come back and contribute to society. We need to stop giving our streets to people that do not want the help. Please support this measure and amend it with some accountability, not just a citation because they will use it as toilet paper on the streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
I'm Catherine Tattersfield with West Valley People's Alliance. I'm speaking on item 20.
Please go ahead. You have a minute, and it's difficult to hear you, so if you can speak closer to your microphone, that would be a good idea.
Hi, I'm as close as I can get. I'm a resident of Council District 12, and I echo Renee Grace in her comments on Councilmember Lee and his statement on July the 1st that there are 60 beds in his district unused. I emailed and called his staff repeatedly to try and fill those beds. His staff was unable to provide a single piece of documentation proving that there were 60 unused beds in his district. He used this as justification to support his motion and voting yes. I urge the council to not fall for his lies and vote no on 4118. There is still time to be on the right side of the history. Join Councilmember Rahman and Councilmember Bonin in voting no on 4118. Do not let John Lee use his position to criminalize people he's not even trying to help. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Diana Gadillion. I'd like to speak on item 20 in public comment, please.
Sure, you have a minute. Please begin, Speaker.
Good morning. My name is Diana Gadillion. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy for the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. First, I just want to thank this council on your work on this issue, and I know it's not easy work, but bold actions must be taken to ensure we are protecting all Angelenos. It's so critical to adopt this ordinance before you today because clearly the status quo is not working, not for residents, not for employees, not for employers, and especially not for our unhoused neighbors. Small businesses are struggling immensely and are under unimaginable pressure after the pandemic, and the sprawling and expanding encampments are adding to the obstacles of success. Our organization supports humanitarian and common sense policies which will protect the integrity and health of our homeless neighbors and also work to help struggling small businesses and residents who are unable to utilize public spaces. We urge the adoption of this ordinance before you today and vow to be a partner to help implement any solutions which will bring humanitarian and long-term support to our unhoused neighbors. Thank you for your attention to this matter and all the hard work you all and your staff have been doing for countless of years on this issue, working together and listening to all.
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
I'd like to speak on all available items and general public comment, please.
So you have 3 minutes for the items, followed by 1 minute for general public comment. Please begin, Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Fauble. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Apologize to Ms. Autry for your gross disrespect. Martinez, Queen of Homelessness. Since we've been gone, about 165 people have died on the concrete, on the street, homeless on the street. We're watching the destruction of whatever society, whatever civilization we had. This item number 20, John Lee, you give Asians a bad name. You give everybody, Buscaino gives everybody a bad name. You're racist clowns like some of these callers calling in, where are you going to put the homeless? You people are responsible for stealing the HHH funds, building units for $700,000 per unit. You have no idea how to stop homelessness. This is just a ploy to criminalize them. With the starting with Garcetti and criminally insane Herb Wesson, and now the queen of homelessness, Krispy Kreme queen of homelessness, Martinez, just continuing. We had so much hope that you would turn this into something that's not a zoo. Number 5, Ridley, Uncle Thomas, alcoholic beverages for the Cumulus Project by Wesson, thousands of units on public property giveaway, zero affordable. We have a Target. We have you're giving alcoholic beverages to. That's great. While he's harassing the black farmers at Lamert Park, still trying to put them out of business with the police and fines. Gregorian, great. You have $28,000 for your own police force for fireworks. Good grief. Hey, Koretz, that's great. You want City Hall illumination for Israel Independence Day? That's great. I think, I guess next week you're going to do the Palestinian Independence Day, right? From their apartheid state. You have to be joking. These people are the criminals. You have no clue on how to stop homelessness. No clue. You are the ones that created the problem. You are doing nothing. All planning and land use must be taken away from these people, public. We're fighting ourselves. That's what these corrupt bastards are doing, having us fight ourselves. They're all
You can go into general if you wish, Speaker.
Thank you, sir. Raman, are you kidding me? Are you stupid? That's a question. I'm not calling you, but Dawson has gotten you into something that you're not going to be able to get out of because he's in it permanently. The Atheba Center. Ask Bonin. You put your name on a motion to take the Atheba Center and give it to someone else. He says in his motion that it was empty. No, he evicted a 20-year-old Black community cultural center, the Atheba Center. You better think twice about this, Raman. Are you crazy? And any of you other idiots that put your name and vote to take the Atheba Center from the people, we can't have Black culture. We'll have Black culture in front of your homes. Raman, get your name off of this motion.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Speaker.
Okay, members, that concludes public comment. Madam Clerk, let's go ahead and vote on the following items. Items 3 through 5, item 14, 16 through 17, 19, 21 to 23, and item 25. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Okay, let's move on to item 24 as amended. Let's open the roll. I'm sorry, Mr. Price, did you want to speak to this item?
Yes.
You want to speak to this item?
Correct.
Go ahead, sir.
Madam President, colleagues, today I'd like to talk about a tragedy that's happened in my district. It's been making the headlines for the past month, and rightfully so. An ill-advised detonation of illegal fireworks seized by the LAPD on June 30th set off an explosion that has forever changed our South LA community. The local catastrophe sent 17 residents and first responders to the hospital, displaced 75 neighbors, damaged dozens of homes on the block, caused the red tagging of 3 houses and left 38 cars in ruins. Not to mention 13 businesses that have been hit hard financially. I live just 10 blocks away from the epicenter of this fireworks explosion, and it was deafening. You can't appreciate the mental and physical devastation that occurred to our community. You need to see it for yourself. So at this time, I'd like to play a video.
Okay, Mr. Price, there are a few folks that we're going to allow come into our meeting virtually, so you can go ahead and ask questions of them. Okay. Can I get a thumbs up from ITA to make sure that these folks are in our Zoom meeting?
We may have this topic coming up.
And just to confirm, Mr. Price, I believe we have Chief Moore with us, Deputy Chief Finjo, Gary Zinger, and Abigail Marquez. Is that who you're expecting?
That's correct.
Okay, seems like they're all there. So, Mr. Price, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to play this video, Madam President, so that the council can see the devastation for themselves.
Go ahead and cue the video.
You know, it's been a long time, 3 weeks, since the explosion rocked our South LA community. Nothing compares to the anguish, the desperation, and the stress that the victims of this blast have had to endure.
The community was evacuated and some homes were yellow tagged and red tagged. So on Sunday, July 4th, we opened up this local assistance center to provide resources for the community so that their lives can get back on track.
I told us to evacuate our house for an hour. So after an hour passed, I came back and I parked west of San Pedro Street on 27th, and one of the cops were like, they're gonna have a little puff, they're gonna sweep it up, and you guys gonna go back in your house. Next thing I know, I hear the biggest explosion and the biggest thump on my body I've ever felt in my life. And like, I played football, college football, and this is something that terrified me. Those people got to go home to their homes, and they're okay, because I know they don't live in that neighborhood. So they got to go home.
The first day, we didn't know what was happening. The first night, we actually stepped in our car across the street from the 28th School Elementary School. We didn't know where to go until the next day. We appreciate everything they're doing for us. You know, I had to go to the hospital, nothing serious, but I had a head injury that they couldn't rule out a concussion for it. But I still kept my head on the game. You know, I went to work with 3 weeks worth of headaches. You know, I even lost my job due to this because my employers thought I was high just because my eye is messed up right now. You know, and that's not fair to us, you know, like you said it. What kind of man is somebody that can't provide for his family? And that's exactly who I am. If I can't provide for my family, then what kind of man am I? 2 years ago, we just came out of being homeless. So this is a big trigger for us. This is something that we really don't appreciate. But at the same time, we understand, you know, the city has so much funding, nonprofits can only do so much. And we appreciate everything everybody's doing. But right now, we just want our life back. You know, our life is on hold. You know, we don't know what to do.
Our main focus right now is to get these folks back in their homes. And we're providing all the resources that we can and that they need so they can have a safe place to go back and reside.
Hola, buenos días. We're happy to be able to bring these fresh food items and packaged goods and hygiene items so that these families can come back to some sort of normalcy during these next few weeks as they go back home. ¿Cuántas personas son su familia?
While the damage and destruction has been done, it's now time to restore our families and to rebuild our community.
Back to you, Mr. Price.
Thank you. A special thank you to Channel 35 who put the video presentation together for us. You truly captured the essence of this devastating event. The two gentlemen featured in the video have since accepted employment with one of our trusted community partners, and that certainly is worth celebrating. However, that's the only silver lining in this tragedy. Just watching these moments once again enrages me and breaks my heart that our citizens had to endure this. Processing the aftermath has simply been mind-boggling. How could the LAPD bomb squad make such a stupid mistake? How could they have allowed this to happen in my working class community? At this time, I want to dispel the rumor that's been circulating. My office was not notified that this detonation was going to take place. We were not informed at all. Had this been communicated to me, I would have said, hell no, don't do that. Don't do that here. Don't do that ever. You must be out of your mind. And while the chief has retracted his original incorrect statement that my council office was informed of these plans, policies need to be changed immediately to make sure that this never happens again. And there must be accountability for those responsible. As my district reels from the reckless damage and the destruction, my focus remains steadfast on sustaining the residents and lifting them up, letting them know that they're not alone. And while my community has been very concerned about the final report from the ATF and the FBI, they're most concerned about getting their lives back together. Until the report of the investigation findings are released, our focus remains on making these families whole and addressing their needs now. I called for an investigation from day one. In addition, I spoke with George Gascon, the LA County DA, asking him to investigate the case, and he agreed to look into it. However, we already know what happened. The LAPD screwed up, further eroding the trust and respect in our black and brown communities. Their actions fell short of law enforcement's duty to protect and serve. Their negligence bears serious consequences, not only for the victims, but for our community and our city as a whole. My community has proven that we are resilient. However, it's going to take some time for us to rebound from this. So we don't want another apology. We don't want you to feel sorry for us. We want action from our government, and we want it now. That's exactly what my office has been doing for the past 28 days. When I arrived on the scene the evening of June 30th, it was total pandemonium. And you may have gotten a sense of it from the video that we just saw. But seeing neighbors covered in blood, being wheeled away in ambulances, disoriented children and elderly, pregnant women and people with special needs, all victims of LAPD's colossal failure. Within the next 24 hours, my office mobilized a humanitarian effort. I personally called the director of HOPICS to set up emergency hotel rooms for 10 families, which consisted with over 50 people that had been misplaced. Since day one, my office has been working around the clock to address the victims' needs, including basic necessities like clothing, food, and medical attention. On July 4th, with support of the Emergency Management Department, we opened the local assistance center at Trinity Recreation Center. The one-stop shop had more than 30 city, county, and nonprofit agencies on site to serve the victims, allowing them to file claims, obtain medical, mental, and physical health evaluations, and to receive other supportive services. We are now offering a streamlined center at the 28th Street Y, where victims can continue to meet with government and nonprofit representatives. For both sites, I asked the St. John Well Child and Family Center, the mobile unit, to provide victims with auditory exams, medical checkups, and other referrals as needed. All of these efforts, which were led by my office, took place while council was in recess. And with the help of city departments like the EMD, the CLA, the CAO, and HCID, we managed to move mountains to assist my residents. Last week, I announced the $1 million emergency relief fund that's going to provide resources to the individuals that have been most severely impacted. This draws directly from my offices reimagining public safety dollars. But let me be clear. I think the money should be coming from the LAPD, and I expect it to be paid back into our reinvestment fund. This emergency fund will go toward providing long-term housing for individuals who have been displaced, providing home repairs from broken windows to plumbing and other structural damage, and financial assistance in the amount of $10,000 each to 25 pre-identified, most severely impacted households. While these cash grants hopefully will be received this week, and accepting the assistance will not impact the family's ability to file a claim or to pursue other legal action. I'm grateful that my office, with the assistance of CLA, was able to pull all this together in record time because our families can't wait for the bureaucracy. Last week, we were able to transition 29 households into first-class, high-quality, longer-term corporate apartments with kitchens and laundry facilities in each unit. I also joined the mayor last Wednesday in delivering $2,000 debit cards to 26 households affected by the fireworks explosion. The money was intended to be used as short-term relief as we continue our efforts to provide more resources. My office has collaborated with EMD to develop a dedicated web page. This page can be found at lacity.org/27th Street. Before we get into today's hearing, I want to thank my staff and the city family for their hard work during this past month. Team Price has been working 24/7 to make sure our neighbors know that they are not alone. From personally delivering 3 hot meals a day to purchasing and providing furniture and refrigerators. In fact, the victims have gotten to know my office, my staff by name, often calling them many times a day just to check in. But I've also called upon an army of volunteers, including the Carpenters Union, who've agreed to donate their labor and expertise. And I enlisted the help from a prominent local nonprofit, the Coalition for Responsible Community Development, CRCD. CRCD has had their boots on the ground since the onset of this crisis, helping to clean up debris from the explosion and to board up windows. And now they're going to be managing our latest initiative to facilitate repairs to 33 homes and to put cash in the hands of severely impacted households. I'm firmly committed to helping the impacted families get back on their feet. But as I've been saying, we need to do more. There is no time to waste. With that being said, I've invited several departments to today's council meeting to discuss what happened, what the city's response has been, and what needs to happen next. Joining us today are the LAPD, LA Fire Department, the Emergency Management Department, and the Housing and Community Investment for Families Department, and the City Attorney. I'd like to start with the LAPD, and Chief Moore is here with us today. Chief?
Good morning, Council Member, and
good morning,
Council President, and to the public that's watching this today. In preparation of my remarks, I've also invited Deputy Chief Pete Zarcone, who's the Commanding Officer of Counterterrorism Special Operations Bureau. He's on this call with us. His responsibilities include the bomb squad. He was not present during this event, but his chain of command within my operations involve those resources. So he'll have the most intimate knowledge relative to the bomb squad procedures that took place that day, as well as our path forward and direction I've given and actions they've taken to ensure that this incident does never repeat itself.
Okay. Chief, I've got a couple of questions I'd like to ask, and perhaps
if I might, sir. If I might, I also introduce Deputy Chief Al Barada. He's the Commanding Officer of Operations Central Bureau, oversees the Newton area and the various patrol resources that were on site and the oversight of this event. Councilmember, I'll answer your questions.
Thank you, Chief. Can you please explain to the council and to the public what happened on June 30th, why it happened, and what steps you're taking to ensure that this thing never happens again?
So what happened that day? Thank you for the opportunity. For what happened, what happened that day? I've made a series of public statements, including extensive media press conference, as well as a statement before the Board of Police Commissioners. But in essence, on that morning, on the 30th, there was an individual who chose to store 16 tons of consumer fireworks on a residential area. Fortunately, a community member telephoned in for an anonymous tip the presence of those illegal fireworks, and that initiated a series of actions of Newton Patrol responding, observing these boxes and boxes of these fireworks being stored primarily outside under a tarp, very dangerous conditions. They summoned the bomb squad. The bomb squad responded, and assessing the location, believed that those materials, while dangerous and could form a catastrophic explosion in that neighborhood, were best to be removed from the scene. We, with a unified command with LA Fire, responded with a incident command that established the protocols of the removal of that firework material. That involved 3 box containers and a 50-foot trailer. All that material was put on pallets, wrapped, safeguards taken to try to ensure that it could be moved without getting a spontaneous explosion. In addition to that, there was immediate evacuation of the surrounding neighborhood. That was a door-to-door door knocking. It did not extend into an examination of those residences for anyone inside, and it did not compel anyone to leave. But there was an effort to establish a safety zone in that residential area while this operation unfolded. Over the course of the next 10 hours, during the process of moving this material, we came across, our department came across what are commonly referred to as homemade or improvised illegal explosives. These were wrapped up in a series of canisters the size of soda cans. About 44 of those were found. And then 200 plus smaller devices the size of a roll of quarters, if you will. In looking and analyzing this material that was found, a very dangerous set of circumstances, as both of those groups of illegal explosives were leaking. Powder substances were coming outside of the material. And in analysis where the robotics, we cut into that material to determine what was inside, and what was taken from it was powder believed to be explosives and believed to be highly dangerous and volatile and unstable. A decision was based on our bomb techs with years of experience, was made that given the nature of these explosives, is that they could not be safely removed or transported from the scene. This was done with the knowledge that not removing them from the scene would require some type of on-scene detonation. To that, we brought what is called a total containment vessel. It's a truck-mounted item that you saw there that was destroyed in this ordeal. It is a large chamber or sphere that is designed to have explosive materials or suspected explosive materials placed within it, and then a large cap cinched down, and it is then purposely detonated with the aid of additional explosives, and then vented, literally a vent hole that has the gases from that explosion harmlessly go into the atmosphere. That is the protocols of the organization have been for decades, is my understanding, and where our investigation has led us to this point. The proper use of that vessel, while never the elimination or total elimination of any risk, but it's designed for the purposes of allowing that to occur without damage or to the surrounding area or risk of injury to people that were in that area. Despite that, additional evacuations were made in both directions there on 27th Street, and safe distance efforts to establish a safe distance made. At approximately 7:40 in the evening, the bomb squad, having measured through an estimation of weight of material placed in that vessel, believing that that vessel could contain that explosion, detonated. And we saw the terrible aftermath. The terrible aftermath involving the fact that that containment vessel failed. And that vessel failing We've called for ATF to conduct a full investigation as to why that failure occurred and how it occurred. And that work is still ongoing. However, it has preliminarily identified through their on-scene investigation that has not been independently verified by technicians and scientists from the ATF headquarters, nor has it been verified through a technical lab forensic study of the containment vessel itself. But it's believed that what was placed in that vessel far exceeded its capacity. Now that mistake and that error was not purposeful. The personnel that were injured were not just the 17 community members, but were 9 LAPD officers and an ATF agent. All of those personnel, community members and officers alike, were subject to this unexpected explosion. We believe at this point, because of an excess amount of explosive material placed there.
Chief, were you notified? I'm sorry. You want to continue?
Yeah, if I might. In determining how that mistake was made is a subject of our current investigation. We are interviewing the bomb techs that were involved, interviewing those that oversaw this process, and examining our protocols to understand were those protocols and expectations followed. If mistakes were made, was it a weakness in the systems of our protocols or a human error by people not paying attention and not closely adhering to our expectations? These bomb technicians each have years and years of experience. They're trained extensively and also bring in recertification every 3 years, and there's ongoing training. So the belief is that their technical expertise would not have such an error, such a mistake like this happen. So our investigation and accountability is to understand where to place that accountability or where that accountability will be shared. To the role of the TCV, that's an item that has been used for previously 41 other times in all parts of the city, north, south, east, and west. Last week when you and I met, we provided you a map of those locations that depicts that. And the expectation is that that's used rather than disposing of the explosive materials where they're found without such a containment vehicle, without such a protective apparatus to minimize the risk of dangers to the surrounding areas. When we find explosives, we have one of 3 options. The preferred option is to transport it safely from the scene and dispose of it remotely at some location that doesn't expose life or property to damage. The second one is that historically has been to use a total containment vessel that would contain the explosive effects without injury or damage to anyone in the surrounding area. The least desired method is to dispose of the material by some type of introduced destruction device which destroys the explosives. So we would say have a car bomb or a pipe bomb that we couldn't move because it has a motion sensitive or so unstable that any movement of it could have a spontaneous explosion. And without any type of armor or ballistic protections, it would subject people to shrapnel or other types of physical injury. So with that, this was that decision, was to use this vessel. How we got to the error of it is our current effort, my commitment. I know that your earlier remarks, you asked for no apologies, that you want to know the actions being taken. But let me again state, I'm sorry that this happened. This entire department went there that day as representatives being the line personnel from Newton area, as well as those bomb techs in a very dangerous situation. They were there genuinely, and I'm sorry that we failed with the failure of this vessel. And how that happened, we are committed to finding out why and ensuring that it never reoccurs. Additionally, and I'll bring to a close, we initially that night met you on scene, but prior to that, I had already reached out to the special agent in charge of the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, federal agency, and asked for their national response team to respond. They spent 7 days here conducting analysis, interviews, collecting evidence, and they've provided their preliminary statements, preliminary report, as I indicated, which points to an error or human error, mistake by our bomb techs, as well as an uncertainty as to what role, if any, ancillary role that vessel. Did it fail as well as the errors on the part of the officers. We are looking at a top to bottom review of our bomb squad operations. We're looking at the prior instances where we used that vessel that was successful to understand how, if this error was isolated to this instance, or if it's possible that the errors that was made in the estimation of these weights has existed before, but just that the amount of material that were found in this instance was what pressed the margin or exceeded the margin. Let me talk just clearly when I talk about the estimation. The ATS analysis to this point took the evidence that was taken from those two devices that we sliced open to understand what these bombs were made out of, and they physically weighed it and put on a scale. And their physical estimation of the smaller devices that it had 1.37 ounces of material, explosive material. Our bomb techs did not physically weigh it. They looked at the material via an x-ray, via physically looking at the baggie of the material that was gathered. They estimated it at a half ounce. You can see clearly that that error compounds itself when you multiply the number of devices that were there. Similar error happened with the larger devices. We have ceased, we've looked at our protocols, and preliminarily it appears that it wasn't explicit that you would physically weigh these circumstances. We've changed that. We've also implemented changes where not just the bomb tech, but a second individual looks over the documentation of the calculations of explosive materials. And then a third safety officer at a supervisor level is there also to verify the math and ensure the calculations are as accurate as possible. And then lastly, effective immediately right after this incident, was we now require a commanding officer to be on scene for these types of operations to ensure tight command oversight. Safety is the absolute primary and driving factor of all bomb squad operations. Safety of the public and safety of the bomb techs. And that is not negotiable. And in this instance, that safety was lost. And we are convinced, or we are committed to ensuring that that is reinstated. The actions taken to this point are to solidify and strengthen policies. Currently, we are also looking at other agencies' practices, and also have invited the FBI to look at our operations as national experts to ensure that not just this disposal aspect, but other aspects of our operations are meeting the national standards. I want to thank Deputy Chief Al Labrada and the Newton area for their added patrols, for their outreach and engagement in this recovery effort and support of EMD, as well as Councilmember Price, your leadership in trying to put these folks' lives back together as much as possible. Our people feel terrible about this accident and the outcome of it, and we're committed to doing everything within our power to support each of these families and each of these individuals for their full recovery and restoration of their lives.
Thank you, Chief. Were you notified of this detonation before it took place? Were you notified personally about it?
I was not. And and let me be clear that your office was not notified of the planned detonation of this information, of this material.
Why wasn't my office informed of the planned detonation?
So in our review of this,
let me back up on that. You mentioned that this process has occurred in communities since 2011. In those instances, were notifications given to the council office that the explosion was going to take place?
So the standard protocols in this day and expectations of the local command was that your office would have been notified of evacuations, as well as with a plan of it escalating into a planned detonation. And I've asked Chief Labrada to review those circumstances of this event, and we fell short of what our expectations of the local command were and what they are. Chief Labrada, anything you'd add to that?
And were guesstimates also occur in these other instances when the vehicle has been used? Is that the normal course of action to guesstimate the amount of explosives?
Well, sir, I wouldn't phrase it as a guesstimation. I would phrase it as an estimation, is what my understanding. In these other instances,
from 16 to 42, that sounds like a guess to me.
the instances of these other detonations, the general expectation is that the chain of command is notified, as well as the local council district to these type of unusual occurrences. They vary in scale. There may be instances in which a grenade is found in a storage container or something that does not offer 16 tons of materials and a detonation of some 40 pounds of explosives that may not involve a specific notification of a council. As you're aware, the council offices, the 15 offices, have varying protocols as to expectations of how their notifications are. What we seek to do is to notify council offices and council members themselves based on their specific interests, or whether they have a public safety deputy or a chief of staff or others. We work that through our council liaison, Mr. Harry Edel. And in this instance, though, let me be clear, your office was not notified of the evacuation, is my understanding, or the detonation, as you've expressed. And in the other instances, I don't have chapter and verse of whether when the explosion was in the Palisades or East LA or North San Fernando Valley. In those instances, generally, I would expect that evacuations of areas, for these types of instances, we would notify the council so that we also could ensure that evacuation centers, resource centers are being stood up to support communities that are in need during these type of emergency situations.
Chief, when are you going to release the names of the individuals that made the decision to detonate the explosives? And how are they going to be held accountable for their actions?
So on the first part, there is a complaint investigation, and this is a personnel complaint investigation. And I'll be guided by the city attorney's office of what lawfully I'm allowed to provide for information. Ultimately, to the members of the community, I'm responsible. This as a chief of police. And so to the extent of a bomb tech's name or a supervisor's actions in this, in that those are personnel matters, I believe, as I sit here today and to respond to your inquiries and those of the public, is that the state law does not allow me to make those names public. If that is not the case, then I will provide those names in an effort to be as transparent as possible. Secondly, as to accountability, there's accountability that flows in many directions here. One is the individual actions of all the persons involved. What was their training? What was their experience? What was the instructions? What were the protocols? And what are the expected actions? Our investigation will determine that. They have, and we'll listen to their accounts of how their actions and whether they believe they met those expectations. And then a judgment, ultimately by me, through the chain of command. If people did not follow protocols, did not follow expectations, training, this is a highly specialized field, then they will be held accountable. The 5 individuals that I believe were most centrally involved in this have been removed from the field pending that investigation, as well as pending additional training and recertification. However, I also am aware that as we dig into this, that there were shortfalls in our established protocols, that there were gaps, and that a fresh set of eyes with a recently installed commanding officer over emergency services has already determined that there were significant areas that he has strengthened through actions of improving documentation, improving notification, and improving verification of actions being taken. And I expect that those, had they been in place on the day of this event, that this could have very well possibly been avoided.
Do you think that terminations are in order for those who were responsible for this disaster?
At this point, I don't have enough information to determine what, if any, discipline is appropriate. My point here is to be fair to those involved. If we provided them, we have high expectations of our people. They have difficult and challenging positions. And this terrible outcome is not of all of their own doing. These emergency situations are stressful. They're guaranteed, their outcomes are not always guaranteed. And the calamity here is our responsibility to ensure that it doesn't repeat itself, but holding those individuals accountable is a fairness process of what are our expectations. Are they fair? Did they follow them? And if we had an adverse outcome because of that, and they followed what we're asking them to do and what we had previously expected them to do, then I don't believe discipline is in order. I think that bears on this department's responsibility. However, if that investigation, once it's completed, finds that people did not meet our expectations and safeguards and established standards were not followed, then discipline is in order. But that decision is best left once all the information is in, and I can make those determinations in a sense of fairness to all parties.
Chief, how do you restore the confidence of the public in your department after this disaster? In other words, what do you plan to do to repair the damage done to the community?
Well, our efforts began that night, and they continue every single day. The presence there that night to rescue individuals or identify if anyone was injured that had not stepped forward, to get them support and assistance, to work with your office, EMD, City Attorney's Office, Building and Safety, DWP, the whole of government, to ensure people had a place to rest their head, that they had resources, that this terrible calamity had disrupted and totally turned their life upside down, is how do we go through and begin the recovery process, and that we're a visible element of that. Our work with your office and communication between you and I to ensure that we had an added physical uniform presence there that continues to this day, that presence at the resource center and the continuation in the follow-up to the second center that was offered, is that we be very visible and that we do outreach and engagement. I'm proud of the work of Newton area, of the captains there and the SLO personnel that have, as your staff has developed personal relationships with a number of people up and down that street and in that area, that have facilitated with NGOs and faith-based communities, added resources, added supplies, added help and assistance. So our efforts to rebuild that trust is every day. This is work that we do as a profession, as a life calling. We're sorry this occurred to every individual member of this organization. This was not what we ever had desired to see happen. And we're committed to doing everything within our power to restore these lives and to make this right, and to make sure that in the future it never occurs again. And that includes steps to ensure that that margin of safety, however frail it is, that it's widened and deepened as much as possible. But I must caution at the end of this, the task before our people that day was made substantially more difficult by the reckless actions of this individual. And by the grace of God, we were told of it, that there wasn't a detonation of that material prior to our intervention. So part of this responsibility is upon the reckless actions of individuals who bring fireworks and store them for the commercial selling on an underground market to our residences. After this event happened, an additional 100 boxes of fireworks was found in that same neighborhood and removed, fortunately, safely. But again, I'm not going to detract or try to divert attention away from the calamity that this department was involved in. But I do want to stress that, because going forward, by the grace of God, this could have been so much worse. And we've seen that in other parts of this region and regarding illegal fireworks. And I don't want to lose that point as we move forward. But again, we shoulder this. It's our fault. It's our responsibility that our protocols did not work that day, and we're going to fix that.
Well, again, Chief, I appreciate your comments, and certainly the individual that was responsible for the fireworks was apprehended, arrested, bailed out, so he's been identified. The community wants to know who was responsible for giving the okay for the detonation, and so we're waiting to receive that information. The community wants the answers, and it's important that we get it. Everyone should be accountable. But thank you, Chief, for your comments this morning. I have one other set of questions, Madam President. I'd like to ask Abigail Marquez from the new GM of our Community Investment and Families Department. She's here to describe what her department and housing have done to help the displaced families. Abigail, I just want to take a moment to thank you for stepping up and doing a tremendous job to ensure that my residents had a roof over their heads. Maybe you can brief the council on what services have been provided and what our plans are going forward to assist those who have been impacted.
I'm happy to do that. Thank you, Councilmember. And I also just want to start by thanking you for your leadership and the support that you've demonstrated to the families who were impacted by this catastrophe. You have been on the front lines along with your staff and have demonstrated extraordinary leadership. And so we do thank you for those efforts. As you mentioned, Councilmember, the Community Investment for Families Department worked very closely with the Los Angeles Housing Department, the CAO, the CLA, and the City Attorney's Office and several other city departments to execute an agreement with a local hotel in the downtown area. Many of the families, not all, but many of the families were initially supported through temporary housing hotel vouchers that were provided by LASA through their spa lead, which is HOPIX, which you mentioned, Councilmember. However, those hotel vouchers were set to expire and we needed to provide additional housing support for some of the families whose homes were either yellow tagged, as was mentioned, or red tagged. And so we worked together as a city family to execute an agreement in a matter of days with this new downtown hotel. We established a relationship with this particular hotel during COVID. The early months of COVID, we were able to house domestic violence survivors who were fleeing. So we already had this relationship established and we quickly activated the hotel to support families. As you mentioned, we're currently, we have an agreement in place for the next 30 days, and we will extend for additional weeks if needed. We will be working closely with your office and CRCD, along with our Family Source Center and various other city departments to track the status of the repairs that are being made and to help transition them back into their homes. But we're grateful that the hotel was able to accommodate these families. As you mentioned, these are apartment style units. They either have provided a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom apartments to families depending on their family size. They are fully equipped. They have kitchens and fully furnished. So again, the accommodations are much, much better for these families, especially as they're gonna remain in the facility for the next 30 days. So I don't have anything else to add, Councilmember. I'm here happy to answer any additional questions. We are, again, engaging very closely with your office and the various other city departments to continue to provide support to these families.
Again, Abigail, we thank you and your team for stepping up to the plate. Did LASA play a role in assisting the department with placing any of these families?
They did initially, as I mentioned, they provided short-term hotel vouchers. I believe it was for a 2-week period. And we have taken over since then.
Okay, great. Thank you, Abigail, again for your efforts. We have the Emergency Management Department, Gary Singer, the coordinator. And just a quick question, Mr. Singer. EMD has been instrumental in coordinating efforts in this disaster. Talk a little bit about the specific services and activities that you provide in conjunction of assisting other departments.
Thank you, Councilmember Price, and thank you to the rest of the council. On behalf of our acting GM, I want to thank you and your team. You have a great team around you. You were elected to represent and advocate for your constituents in your district, and you've done that and more. EMD serves as the coordinating body during disasters. Every department has a role to play, has a certain piece of the puzzle. The emergency management pieces together. We study disasters, we learn from them. This is what we do on a day-to-day and doing so helps us to respond effectively. So one of the first things that we did during this specific disaster is try and gather as much information as possible. That helps inform our next actions. Communicate that information internally to the city family, externally to the public. And all. What we did is we started coordinated conference calls. What that does, questions to be answered, needs to be aligned so that we're not duplicating. Externally, we compile situation reports. so that that we're doing on a daily basis. And then to the public, if needed, we can send out emergency alerts to the. We do that during wildfires and things of that nature. If requested, we can go to the scene and serve as liaison officers. And what we do is we get the people there that need to be there in an effort to take things off of the plate of the lead department so that they can focus on the job at hand. And meanwhile, we have the ability to activate the Emergency Operations Center because while a city like this, as big as we are focused and have the resources to handle the incident at hand. We also have to keep our eyes on the big picture because things don't stop. Now, while we were coordinating the 27th Street incident, we had the Hyperion spill that we're monitoring, power outages in the valley, still in the middle of a surge in COVID cases. As the city's need, we coordinate the activation of that local assistance center that you had mentioned earlier. That's where we bring the area that's affected so that it's parks. We identified a site that was nearby. We brought over 30 agencies from the city, public, private, county, state, all to assist those that were in need. Great success. We felt like we saw almost 300 individuals and have almost 900 table touches, we call them, where the residents that are affected go in places that are there to them. And then since then, we have worked with your staff and the website to communicate to the public all the things that have been done by you and your office and the city family, as well as the ongoing efforts that continue. So happy to answer any other questions that you have, Councilman.
I don't think we have any questions at this time, Mr. Singer. I just want to thank you again for your cooperation and collaboration in helping to coordinate assistance, again, to neighbors who are in real need. As I conclude, let me just ask the fire department to join us. Deputy Chief is with us.
Yes, Councilman, good afternoon.
Hi, Deputy Chief. Question, we like to get the fire department's take on what happened on June 30th, and what was your level of involvement and the role of the department in a disaster like this?
Yes, sir. And again, good afternoon to Council President and council members. My name is Philip Flegel. I'm the Deputy Chief in charge of Operations Central Bureau for the LA Fire Department. I oversee the 24-hour, 7 days a week operation of the Central Bureau, which includes the area that was involved with this incident that happened on the 30th. What happened on that day is that afternoon, approximately 6 o'clock, the fire department was notified by LAPD that they were going to be conducting an operation, and we were going to assist them as a standby in case there was any issues that were happening during their event that they were taking care of. Traditionally, we assign an engine company with water, fire engine, an ALS ambulance, and a battalion chief for supervision. When the battalion chief initially got there, he unified with LAPD command and went over the operation, developed any objectives that need to be addressed during that operation, any contingency objectives in case something did happen, and those were established and we stood by. Within the next hour, we all know what occurred. Within that time, the battalion commander, again with LAPD, deployed some of those objectives, with the immediacy being on the immediate triage, treatment, transportation, and tracking of any victims that were on the scene. Also, any extinguishment of fire that was there, which wasn't. And also evacuation concerns and stabilizing structures and utilities in the area to make sure the incident was abated. After a lot of that initial stuff was handled relatively quickly, and the 17 patients were assessed and 16 were transported, began to scale down and turned more into an LAPD law lead, and the fire department dropped out of the unified command with LAPD. Later on in the next preceding days, LA Fire did assist also in some other assisting efforts to help out the community and also other city agencies and also the HEF with their investigation.
What are your protocols? What protocols are in place when an emergency such as a large fire occurs? Do you contact the council office? At what point is the council office informed of what's going on?
Yes, sir. Usually during an event of this magnitude, we do have notifications. We have a chain that happens. The department has established an emergency contact list within each council district office for people who to be contacted 24 hours a day for emergency activity within their district. We've also included council member representatives to our LEFD alerts, which provides the same up-to-date email notifications that are received from LEFD staff. Additional notifications are made via cell phone, either through our chief of staff or the impacted geographic bureau commander, such as myself, to provide information on the incident that is occurring. The department also has other directors, our chief of staff, our government internal affairs director, and also geographic bureaus are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to answer any questions as needed as well.
Well, thank you, Chief, for your input and for your service to our community. I've got one last question for the city attorney. City attorney's office is with us.
Hi, this is Kelly Porter from the City Attorney's Office.
Hi, Ms. Porter. Thank you for joining us. Can you talk about the time frame for settling claims and getting money into the hands of the neighbors so that they can get their lives back in order?
Sure. So we have been directed by the city attorney to prioritize these claims, and we've received 145 claims. 62 are still being processed by the city clerk's office, and they come to our office on a daily basis. 64 are under investigation by our office, and we have contacted all 64 of those claimants. It is our goal to make the constituents and claimants whole for the damage that they suffered. We obviously just need some pieces of evidence, some invoices. They don't have to actually pay for the repairs. They can just give us estimates. We also have folks on our team that can also do adjustments and evaluate the damage. At the direction of the city attorney.
Have any claims been, excuse me, just cutting in, have any claims been paid yet? Any claims been paid yet?
Yes, and I don't have those numbers with me right now, but yes, and we have, through our financial office, coordinated with the controller to have the claims paid once the settlement has been reached within a week or so, which is fast in our process.
All right, well, thank you. Again, speed and time is of the essence, and we just hope that the city attorney will work closely with these families in making sure that settlements are made fairly and quickly so that lives can go on. Madam President, thank you for your support and for your attention in scheduling this item today. And I want to thank all the departments that came forward and participated. I think it's important for the public to hear directly from the city officials that are responsible and regarding what happened. To me, it's clear that going forward, the city needs to establish more effective protocols for dealing with emergencies like this. Council offices need to be notified about dangerous and life-threatening activities that are occurring in their districts. The departments need to understand what is expected of them and what their roles are in an emergency like this. So I'm going to be adding to the motion before us today an instruction to develop these protocols. I'm also asking the CAO, with assistance from various departments, including the LAPD, to identify funding to pay back CD9 for the $1 million that we advanced to help the families who are impacted by this explosion. Again, this should never have occurred. And we want to make sure that that our citizens are made whole again. Through our actions, I believe that we can earn some trust back, but we have to act. In the meantime, I stand in solidarity with my community in holding those responsible accountable for their actions. Thank you, Madam President and colleagues.
All right, thank you, Mr. Price. Mr. Buscaino?
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Price, to you and your team, what an incredible response in this tragic incident that occurred in South Los Angeles in your district, and to the city family who moved quickly with urgency to help those that were impacted by this incident. Let's be reminded, colleagues, that what we had here is an individual who was irresponsible, who stockpiled tons of illegal fireworks in this particular part of our South Los Angeles neighborhood. And I'd like to know what is the status of his filing charges. Maybe Chief Moore, if you could just give us the status of the suspect in the case, status of the filing, and are we anticipating holding him accountable for taking a role in this tragedy in South Los Angeles, and who is responsible? Is it the district attorney? Is it the attorney general? If you can just report on that, please.
So yes, sir, thank you. The district attorney, these are state charges that he's currently been arrested for, felony charges. The slate of those charges, I'll ask Chief Zarcone to identify whether or not those charges have been filed yet by the district attorney's office. The individual has bailed out, which typically delays the decision by the district attorney's office, but I am hopeful and believe that this individual who traveled to Pahrump, Nevada and purchased 16 tons of commercial fireworks for the purpose of bringing it here and selling it in the underground market will face the full weight of California state law, as well as face the consequences relative to the unnecessary dangers he exposed, the reckless danger, endangerment he exposed to the 10-year-old that was living at that house. In addition to that, we're working alongside our U.S. attorney and the ATF to fully pursue federal charges against this individual for the interstate commerce of this illegal material and the dangerous material, as well as an effort to identify the individual who sold and grossed this huge amount of fireworks. We believe that there are potential federal charges for his engagement as well. I'll look to Chief Zarcone. His major crimes division is one working along with fire on the investigation of this, and I would ask Chief Zarcone if he has any further.
Yeah, Chief, that's absolutely correct. There are state and federal charges possible. The federal charges, as you stated, for bringing the material across state lines. He has been arrested on the state charge first and then rearrested on the federal charge. I will have to get back to you on whether or not charges are filed at this point, but he was arrested and has bailed out.
No. Got to add some balance around here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Price, we're going to go ahead and prepare to vote on this item. Do you have anything else to add? Because I'm going to go ahead and call the roll on this item.
Nothing more, as for an aye vote.
All right, thank you very much. As amended, we're going to go ahead and vote on item 24. Madam Clerk, please open the roll.
So she just showed, and
Close
all the
the
other
roll.
people, they got nothing else to do.
Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
This item is adopted as amended.
Okay, let's move on to item number 10 as amended. This was an amendment introduced by Mr. Harris-Dawson, seconded by Mr. De Leon. Let's open the roll. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Okay, let's move on to item 15. Mr. City Attorney, there's a substitute on this item, so which will require 2 votes.
Yes, we should.
So let's go ahead and vote whether a substitute. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Item is now before us. Let's go ahead and open the roll. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Let's move on to item 18. There's also a motion to substitute. Let's go ahead and vote on whether to substitute. Open the roll. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Let's go ahead and vote on the item. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
15 eyes.
Okay, let's move on to item number 20. This was called special by Mr. Riley Thomas and Mr. Bonin. Mr. Riley Thomas?
Well, thank you very much, Madam President. With your permission, I'd like to ask the CEO and staff if they would come to the center table just for a couple of questions. Today we have the second reading of the ordinance that would create avenues, if deemed necessary, to regulate space within the city of Los Angeles.
Okay, Mr. Riley Thomas, we have with us on council chambers Mr. Zabel and Ms. Yolanda Chavez.
Thank you.
Anyone else you wish to come to the table? These are the only two folks?
Not at this point,
All right.
Madam President.
Go ahead, continue.
Thank you. And after today's vote, it's my understanding that the mayor has to sign the ordinance, and then, like every other ordinance, there's a 30-day period of time after the mayor signs before the ordinance goes into effect. And I think it's the case that this is important because the CAO has delivered, as instructed in the motion that was then 55A, to come forth with the specified period of time with a street engagement policy. I'm pleased that that has happened, and I just wanted to afford the CAO the opportunity to walk us through that. Street engagement has a clearly important component of addressing homelessness in the city of Los Angeles, and I've said it before, and many of us have said it as well. If we wish to see a sustainable way to reduce the crisis of homelessness in our city, we have to have a much more robust, a much more imaginative, a much more extensive level of outreach and activities on the street that transitions people from the streets into decent, appropriate, and dignified housing options. And this is a step, a significant step in that direction. And so, Mr. Zabel, Ms. Chavez, as the case may be, it would be helpful for us to have an opportunity here. In summary fashion, the report, I want to thank you for living up to the council's expectation to deliver the report prior to the adoption of the motion or the ordinance, and this being your first installment of a significant report of this sort to the council since being named CAO. I know this is important, and I'm pleased that we have the opportunity to hear from you. Members of the council, further discussion and refinement of this work in progress happens at the regularly scheduled meeting of the Homelessness and Poverty Committee, next meeting, August 12th, where we will go into further detail, but it is before us. Mr. Zabel, the floor is yours. Madam President.
Thank you very much, Madam President and Councilman. Per the council instruction, the Office of CAO had 30 days to report back on a recommended street engagement strategy. Today is day 28 of that 30 days. We did just about an hour ago submit the completed report. So I understand that probably no one around the table has been able to review it in detail yet. There will be a appropriate time to have a full discussion about it in committee and at full council. The report does make a number of recommendations for processes for street engagement, building on best practices from a number of organizations around the city and the county, a number of your offices directly. I can turn it over to Yolanda to give a brief summary, and we can answer some of your questions. But again, I would just suggest that there will be ample time in committee and in full council to discuss the details of the report more fully.
So good afternoon, Yolanda Chavez with the CAO's office. As the CAO stated, this report was just released, and I believe it's not even on the council file yet, but I did try to email it to all of your offices, so hopefully they have it at this point. And I want to just start by saying that this report is really just the beginning of the framework, and we hope that we can finalize as we discuss further in the Housing and Poverty Committee, and then of course back in council with you. And what we try to do is really to take best practices, not only from the city and county outreach workers, but also from from all of you as well, because you've all been engaged in outreach and trying to house people, provide services and outreach. The other, I think, premise of this framework is that it's housing focused, because at the core of any street strategy is really assessing people's needs and connecting them to services and housing, right? That is the goal. And so it also makes it clear that if we don't have housing resources to offer people, we cannot clear encampments. So having those housing resources available is critical to clearing any encampment. Right. And so what we do...
May I just remind everybody that what's in front of us today is 4118 and the related sections 5611. So this report's not actually on the agenda. I understand that it connects in certain ways, but let's try to stick to the ordinance which is in front of us.
Okay. So in relation to the ordinance, what we would say is that we're recommending that the street strategy, again, is proposed and is a pilot, which will be amended with further discussion, should be implemented citywide for day-to-day street outreach, but also to implement major or concentrated engagements, right, in for encampments that are 10 to 15 tents, 30 or more people, or that may pose a public health and safety hazard. And that it be also used to implement 4118, section C 1 through 4 and D, right? Only if they're encampments present. So to be able to clear those in post, we would recommend that a concentrated engagement process be implemented to be able to do that, so that the people living within that area can be assessed, can be provided with services and housing, so that we're able to clear that site. So that's in relation to 4118, section 1, 2, 4, and D. So 4118, C 1 through 4 and D, which is where where a resolution is needed so that a site can be designated as for posting. Those are the sections. So with that, because this report is not on the agenda, I'll end there. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions? Mr. Koretz?
Not a question, just some comments. Colleagues like all of us, I've deliberated carefully about this ordinance for weeks and read many, many emails that we've all received on both sides of the issue. Particularly residents who have expressed opposition have said the ordinance is going to undermine the Housing First framework adopted by HUD and the city and county and others, and have also said that it would criminalize homelessness. But from my point of view, the ordinance does neither of these things. To those opposed, this ordinance by itself does not criminalize homelessness. What it does is revise a section of the municipal code that is terribly outdated by many decades and creates a new framework to keep portions of our public right-of-way accessible to everyone. I should also note that if this ordinance were to be enforced in its entirety and citations were issued or arrests made without first warning individuals that they needed to relocate from a particular area, or without a real offer of housing, I think we might find ourselves on shaky legal grounds. But that's not what's being dealt with here. This ordinance stems from the same motion that first instructed the CAO, along with service providers and stakeholders, to develop the street engagement strategy that we've briefly discussed here, that includes an offer of shelter or housing. It also instructs relevant departments to minimize the points of engagement between law enforcement and people experiencing homelessness. I don't think this ordinance is perfect. It'll need refinement over time, but it's important to remember that it's only half of the equation. And so I think we all know homelessness is a product of a housing market that doesn't cater to low, or even that matter, middle-income Angelenos any longer. We recognize there's a systemic lack of resources and services for mental health care. We recognize there are historic injustices in a justice system that's been more focused on putting people into it than getting them out, and doesn't really help settle them back into society once they get out. The list goes on in terms of the causes. Everyone needs to understand that what's before us today isn't the city's solution to homelessness. It's just a first step in developing a citywide framework for better managing our public right-of-way and ADA compliance, while continuing the work of getting solutions and services to the far too many people that have been left behind. And that includes those that don't want help but need it anyway. So with that said, colleagues, I'll be voting in support of this ordinance today, and of course monitoring its implementation closely.
Mr. Buscaino?
Thank you, Madam President. I want to first start by thanking Mr. John Lee for seconding my Rule 54 to get us to this point. I also want to thank the chairman, Mr. Mark Ridley Thomas, colleague, our council member, for his leadership on this very difficult issue. I want to thank you, Mr. Ridley Thomas, for standing up for the disabled, the mother pushing her stroller, for children walking to school. I want to thank you for standing up for the unhoused by supporting rules that will bring order and better regulate limited public space. I want to thank you, Mr. Ridley Thomas, for standing up to the Twitter advocates and the activists that want no rules, no restrictions, no order. I want to thank you for giving me a tool on behalf of my residents and businesses. Now, this is not a magic wand or a solution, but the tool to address homelessness in my district. Thank you, sir, for doing the right thing. Members, this ordinance before us clearly is a vast improvement over the status quo, but I feel it doesn't go far enough. It lacks citywide provision that you cannot camp if you have been given an alternative. If we all agree that the status quo is unsustainable, that street encampments are dangerous to both the housed and unhoused, why would we continue to allow them anywhere if an alternative exists, like my district today? How is it compassionate to continue to allow someone to live in an environment without running water, without toilets, without trash service, when we know that the life expectancy for those on the street is 20 years less, when we know they're much more likely to be a victim of violent crime or have their tent set on fire by an arsonist? How is it compassionate to allow that? I'll support this ordinance because it's an improvement from what we have today. But I'll also make another prediction like I did with 5611 5 years ago. Without a citywide provision, we'll be doomed to repeat the same cycle we have with our overnight RV parking restrictions, adopting resolution after resolution, putting up thousands upon thousands of signs around the city while encampments move from neighborhood to neighborhood. I would like to see a simple, straightforward ordinance that's easy for our unhoused residents to understand. And it's this: if you are offered shelter, you must either move in, move along, or face a consequence. Madam President.
Mr. De Leon?
Thank you very much, Madam President. Colleagues, for months, if not years, Los Angeles has watched the problem of homelessness bloom into the worst humanitarian crisis the city has ever experienced. Over time, the city has attempted to implement policies to address aspects of this problem. It's been a piecemeal process for years, if not decades. And today we're going to vote on an ordinance to limit the spaces where unhoused Angelenos can live, sleep on our streets. Basically, it's an enforcement side. So while we vote on this ordinance to take a practical approach to addressing where unhoused neighbors can't lie their heads at night, we still haven't set a goal or a time frame for housing our neighbors. Just to be clear, these are not mutually exclusive options. Restricting spaces for encampments and developing housing units for our homeless individuals facing this crisis are not, again, mutually exclusive. I've said this before. It's a mistake. It's a mistake to only move the enforcement piece without providing our unhoused Angelenos anywhere to go, because it's simply reflexive. We're moving them from one part of the city to another part of the city. It's equivalent to rearranging the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. Without question, I agree that our kids deserve to walk to school safely. I agree that the disabled residents of our city have the same rights to our public right-of-ways as able-bodied residents. But I also know that if you're unhoused, you don't have options on where you can safely sleep. There simply aren't enough housing units or enough beds for people to go. This is our reality in Los Angeles, and quite frankly, this is the reality of this council for years, if not decades. Which is why this past January, 8 months ago, I introduced my Away Home Plan, which calls on the city of Los Angeles to commit itself to developing 25,000 homeless units, housing units, by the year 2025. We've discussed at length in committee. My colleagues have now voted out of committee. Now it's ready for a vote on the floor. And Madam Council President, I understand that we now have a commitment from you to bring my 25 by 25 motion the week of August 9th. I just want to make sure if I am correct. Thank you very much.
Sir, you are correct.
Thank you very much,
I'm committed
Madam
to
Chair.
doing that.
Thank you very much. I want to emphasize this. The past 8 months, with the hard work of my staff and others, we have been able to house approximately 2,205 individuals in the past 8 months that I've been here in City 14. To the author of this measure, Mr. Krikorian, who represents finally his district, without a doubt, CD2, we house more individuals who currently reside in CD2 as unhoused individuals. That gives you the magnitude of the crisis. And I would further say, if we don't couple this with the housing that's needed, and we have a commitment in the week of August 9th, where we'll have a vote, up or down, that we'll have several districts who will be quite aggressive in their approach and will actually move unhoused community members into neighboring districts. So we're just shifting it around, back and forth. And I know in our committee, Housing and Homelessness and Poverty, we've been working really hard with our chair and with our colleagues as well. And we're across the spectrum on these issues, without a doubt. But we all want the same issue. It doesn't make a difference you're on the left or the right, points in between. We all want housing, immediately and long term. But I would just really emphasize to all of my colleagues here today, I know this measure is going to pass. We'll have a couple folks who are not going to go up on this vote. I'll be supportive of the measure as long as we have coupled with the housing component. Because without it, again, we'll go back to the old days. And lastly, I'm going to say this, and I've said this on numerous occasions already. In 2017, the United Nations Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights said very clearly that he criticized the city officials because of the number of unhoused individuals, especially in my district, in Skid Row, CD14. Then we had the Mitchell case, the Garcia case, the Jones case, the Levon case, Desatrain case, and now the latest iteration of litigation, LA Alliance. And it's in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, as we all know. We've appealed the case right now. But that's all we've been doing until we land a deal that's coherent, that puts us on a pathway where we can be measured and held accountable. Every single business wants their business steps clear of any individuals. We all want the same thing, but we have to couple that, again, colleagues, with housing. Madam President, I thank you very much, along with my colleagues, that we will have a vote on housing on August 9th, 10th, or 11th. Thank you very much.
Mr. O'Farrell?
Thank you to all of my colleagues who have been leaders on this readoption of the ordinance to regulate the public right-of-way. And thank you, Mr. Chair Ridley Thomas, for your work on leading the refinement of this ordinance that we are about to adopt. Just for the record, I have questions to ask, be very brief, and if all of them can't be answered now, then I think that we'll need to get to the answers. They're practical and as much for just daylighting and clarifying expectations as much as anything else. So once passed, does the City Attorney's Office plan to create an official map of the areas where this ordinance will be in effect? And I'm talking about the locations where no resolution is required. If there's no answer to that now, I would suggest that a map be created to that effect. And perhaps there isn't an answer right now.
Council member, this is Valerie Flores from the City Attorney's Office. We could assist in drafting a map, but I'm not sure we're the right department or office to do so. In the past, when we've created maps, we've relied heavily on help from the planning department. But we agree that maps would be beneficial, and we will help in any way that we can.
Thank you. That's something that we can move on as a council. Another question, who will be responsible for creating and posting the signs as they relate to locations that will be adopted by resolution? And we need to address the funding question for that purpose as well.
Again, that's actually a policy call for council in terms of which department to request do the actual postings and provide funding for the postings. Some candidates might be the Bureau of Street Services, or because some of the signs might be included on LADOT existing poles, you may want to request that LADOT assist with new postings.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. And then when will this ordinance go into effect if approved today by this council?
First, the ordinance will be transmitted to the mayor's office. As you know, the mayor will have 10 days to decide whether to approve the ordinance. If the mayor does not act within the 10 days, the ordinance is deemed approved. Thereafter, it is transmitted to the city clerk's office and will be published. Depending on the method of publication, be it posting or printing in a newspaper, it will be between 1 and 10 days additional. And then thereafter, the ordinance becomes effective with another 31 days after posting or printing is accomplished.
Thank you. And if someone identifies an ADA violation as it pertains to this ordinance, how would that be reported? For example, should a violation be entered into the 311 system if it's a non-emergency situation, or if it is more immediate and passage on a sidewalk is completely blocked, what is someone to do who identifies that situation?
Again, that is something that can be addressed in protocols, which I believe the Bureau of Sanitation and maybe the CAO's office can address. Now that there are new provisions in 4118 relating to ADA violations, new protocols should be developed to deal with those situations.
Thank you. And lastly, just for reiteration, Ms. Flores, and that is, are you confident that this is in complete compliance with all of the guidelines as per the Boise ruling?
Yes, our office has signed off as to form legality on the ordinance. We do believe it complies with the Boise decision, but of course the Boise decision has not yet been tested in court, but we believe we have a good faith basis to defend the ordinance.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Mr. Bonner?
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, I spoke at length last time, so I'll speak very succinctly this time, and I will make 3 points. Point 1, we need a right to housing, not a mandate to shelter. Point number 2, people want housing. They do not want warehousing, they don't want shelter, they want housing. Those of us who have done encampment to home style programs, me, Mr. Blumenfield, Ms. Rahman, Mr. Ridley Thomas, each time we do it, we see people from other areas trying to avail themselves of the program because they want housing. There are far more people who want housing than we have sufficient resources. Point number 3, my last point. As I said the last time we discussed this, LASA said a few weeks ago that we have not housing, we have shelter beds for 39% of the unsheltered population in Los Angeles County. We have beds for 39% of the unsheltered in the city of Los Angeles. What about the other 61%? Where can they go? Where can they sleep? Thank you.
Okay, members, let's go ahead and prepare to vote on this item. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. I'm sorry. Please open the roll. Close the roll. And tabulate the vote.
13 ayes, 2 noes.
Let's move on to items 1 and 2. Mr. City Attorney, we've got to reopen public comment for these 2 items. Is that correct?
Yes, so we're going to reopen public comment for items 1 and 2 only, which are the establishment of the Venice Beach property bid and the Westchester Town Center property bid. So I'll just very briefly read in the call-in information again. So as was read before and as is on the agenda, members of the public wishing to offer public comment on item 1 or 2 only, nothing else, should call 669-254-5252 and use meeting ID number 160-535-8466. Then press pound. Press pound again when prompted for participant ID, and once admitted to the meeting, press *9 to request to speak. So you call 669-254-5252, use meeting ID number 160-535-8466, press pound again when prompted for participant ID, and then when you're admitted into the meeting, you press *9 to request to speak. As I indicated before, we have a new Zoom protocol. So when it's your turn to speak, you will be auto-prompted by a Zoom voice to press *6 to unmute yourself. If you don't do that quickly, you'll get one prompt from the staff here. At that point, if you don't unmute quickly, you will forfeit your time and we'll move on to the next person. So if there's anybody signed up to speak, let's start up. This is public comment for 1 and/or 2.
Mommy! Mommy!
Which
I
items?
don't want it to!
You have 2 minutes. Please stick to the items. Go ahead.
Yes! We're talking about item 1 and item 2, the fucking beds! Beds are bad! That's what Gil tells me all the time. They go around and they tax you on your property bill. No good. I suppose that fucking faggot Mike Bonin and that ugly Nithya ramen noodle will probably be the only two no votes. They vote no on every goddamn fucking thing that could clean a city sidewalk up or an alley, because they like dirt. But the other 13 council members like clean sidewalks and streets. So that's why we're going to pass this, despite Bonin and despite Nithya Ramen Noodle Girl. Yes. And we've amended it. And what we're going to do is we're going to do what Current Price said. We're going to take all the fucking money for this item out of the LAPD budget, just like that bomb that they set off in CD9.
Stick to the items.
They like to set off bombs. So they're trying to set off a bid bomb. That's right. LAPD likes to blow shit up.
Okay, so we're
in
off
residential
topic. I suggest we
districts.
move on to the next speaker. Next speaker?
Yes, hi. Sean O'Brien here. I'd like to speak on items 1 and 2. Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Property taxes are so high in LA County based on our land values. And to penalize certain groups of people to do something the city should already be doing is undemocratic. It's just not fair. I mean, it's like upwards of $4,500 a year, sometimes adding 50% to somebody's tax bill annually. And it's an undue burden for those poor people. Now, I live in an area where I don't pay for the bid services, but I benefit from them. So I like to keep the bid, but I can't do it because of how it penalizes my neighbors. Especially when, again, the bid is doing city work that our tax dollars are already spending. And because of our leftists and our progressive city council, bid is unable really to perform the duties they were set out to do originally, which is insane. So, they are doing, cleanups and they are doing graffiti removal. I wish you guys would put back in bid that they have to talk about how many needles they pick up. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Next speaker.
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
Yeah, this is Richie Sergenko. I'll speak on 1. I'll be quick. You all that just voted for item 20 should be ashamed. You just hate poor people. So congrats. You send a message to Los Angeles. Buscaino, you say talking about activists. Calm down, buddy. You're not gonna be mayor. You're running on a pro-cop.
Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
Hello, I'd like to speak on the item 1, the Venice property bid.
Sure.
It's an illegal bid. There is public property west of the private property line on Oceanfront Walk that's included in this bid. That's ridiculous. Prop 218 says that you can only impose an additional tax on private property that produces a special benefit to that property owner that is not a general benefit to the public or a general public benefit. So you can't include public property west of the private property line. It's not contiguous property, it's additional property. Additionally, there needs to be an investigation of the tax assessments for the commercial properties throughout the Venice Beach bid. Many people are operating so-called hotels while paying multi-unit residential property taxes in a commercial zoned area. These are inconsistencies. There's a lot of issues. Please look into it. An illegal hotel just opened, the V Hotel
thank
at
you, Speaker.
1217.
Next.
Hello.
Please state your name and the items
Hello?
you'd like to speak on.
This is Eva, and I'd like to speak on motion item 1 regarding the Venice bid.
Please go ahead.
And also general comment.
There is no general, just the 1 minute for the bid item. Please go ahead.
Okay. All right. Great. I think this bid, especially during COVID, should have been totally eliminated. There was no reason for them to be taxing any Venice residents that live in the bid area because there were no services that were provided. None at all. Encampment after encampment, sidewalks, trash strewn everywhere. It made no sense. It also made no sense that it should actually even be in existence because we already have cleanups when we didn't have COVID that were taking place. There was no reason for them. I believe that they are illegal. I think there should be a lawsuit filed against them, but they should especially not have. They should have rescinded and put a moratorium on any charges against those who live in that area during COVID. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name and the
Yeah,
items you'd like to speak on.
I'd like to speak on items 1 and 2.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, we don't, no more bids. Bids are the reason, they're the driving factor behind, behind what you guys just passed, 4118, where you're now going to just terrorize and criminalize homelessness. And all of you.
Can you stick with the bid items, please? That's the only thing open.
I am talking about the bid. I'm talking about how the city council bends to the will of these bids that have no oversight whatsoever. They're the ones pushing for brutalization of unhoused people. So we shouldn't have any bids whatsoever, because then they get people like Worm Mitch O'Farrell to ask if they can use ADA complaints to punish homeless people. Or they push people like Blob Paul Koretz into saying, oh, this is a step towards housing people. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's criminalization. That's what bids are pushing. So we should abolish all bids, period. I yield my time.
Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
My name is Jeff Harris, and I'd like to speak on item 1.
Please go ahead.
Yes, I represent a property developer on Venice Boardwalk, Gary Sutter, and I am also a member of the Venice Beach bid. I joined the bid because I feel like private industry's input will help with the unique challenges that Venice faces. Obviously, we have the police, we have the sheriff, we have councilmen, we have Parks and Rec, but I think only the bid with its private industry involvement can help kind of like act as a fellowship for all of these different entities to bring them together to create some kind of a unity and a uniform approach to these problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker.
Caller ending in 3733, please press *6 to unmute.
So that person has dropped off, and I believe that's the end. So we've gone through all the speakers. Yes, so let's
Okay,
vote
let's
on
go
1
ahead
and
and that concludes public comment for items 1 and 2. Let's go ahead and open the roll on items 1 and 2, Madam Clerk. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Okay, what's before us now?
Madam Chair, if I may, for items 1 and 2, the public hearing is now closed. The tabulation of ballots shall take place in room 223 of City Hall immediately, now that public hearing is closed. The results of the tabulation of the ballots will be certified by the city clerk to the City Council at its meeting on Friday, July 30th, 2021, or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard in the council chambers, room 340 of City Hall, 200 North Spring Street, Los Angeles, California, 90012. Depending on the result of the ballot tabulation, the City Council may consider adopting an ordinance establishing the district. Also, for the record, the ordinance for item 20 is adopted forthwith.
We're done with this, right? We don't need to vote.
Okay, what's before us now?
Council has motions for posting and referral. Motions will be posted on the city clerk's website shortly after the meeting for the public's viewing. To subscribe to receive copies of today's council motions to your email, please visit clerk.lacity.org.
Okay, posted and referred. Members, are there any announcements today? Any announcements? We do want to wish Ms. Rahman a happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Sorry it fell on a council day. Well, 40 looks good on you, Ms. Rahman. Let's move on to adjourning motions. Mr. Cedillo? Okay. Ms. Rodriguez?
I might go home meeting without making a comment.
Colleagues, Thursday morning, we sadly lost a member of our city family. A 20-year veteran of our Los Angeles City Fire Department, Firefighter 3, Henry Munoz. Henry was born on March 15, 1971, the eldest of 3 sons, born to proud parents, Henry and Rosemary Munoz, also known to family and friends as Rick and Rosie, my godparents. To know what was unique about Henry, or Little Rick, as he was known to those of us that had the privilege of growing up with him, is to know how he was raised. The apple didn't fall far from the tree. And I've shared many times, Mr. Cedillo, that I'm a Valley girl with East Side roots.
Yes, you are.
I wasn't born in the San Fernando Valley, I was born in East LA. My dad, after returning from Vietnam, married my mom and settled in Montebello. He got a job at the General Motors plant in Van Nuys, where he and my grandfather worked. And it was there that he met who would become my godfather, Henry Munoz. They met on the loading docks of the General Motors plant, and they became the very closest of friends. And even when they each went off to pursue different careers, my dad joining the LA City Fire Department, my Nino building sets as a member of IATSE, they remained very close, and our families were inseparable. With my grandparents and my extended family living across town, the Munoz family became our family, and they are my family, inviting us to every family gathering, becoming the godparents to both my sister and I, their 2 boys who were close in age, Ricky and Joey, and Manny coming along much later. Our 2 families did everything together. My parents and Nino and Nina were the best of friends, and their boys became my brothers, and we did everything together. Trips to the desert to ride motorcycles, lake trips, countless birthday parties, and every major milestone, our families celebrated everything together. We would join them sitting in the stands of Pop Warner football games and just had barbecues just because. There wasn't a single major moment in each other's lives that we didn't share. Rick was always the jokester. He had a way of talking that as if while in verse, he was always laughing, and he had a very unique laugh. He could get Joe's goat, his younger brother, like no one else, And like a typical big brother, he would always egg Joe on. And when Manny came along, he had his wingman. I can't recall a moment when Rick and all of us weren't around one another, crying, laughing about something he said or did. Football was his sport, a passion which began early when he played for the Chatsworth Chiefs. He attended his local public schools, beginning with Chatsworth Elementary, Lawrence Middle School, and attended Granada Hills High briefly until earning a scholarship to play football at Montclair Prep High School. He then went on to earn his bachelor's degree from Cal State Northridge in graphic design. Growing up, Rick had many jobs. I remember him working at the local Albertsons, security at Bullock's, located in the Northridge Mall, which is now Macy's, where he would meet his future wife, Kate. He worked at the marketing department at Galpin Motors, and most notably, a member of the Munoz construction team with Joe and my Nino, where they together helped to build the family dream home in Sherwood Forest in Northridge. And it was the discipline and work ethic that was the training ground for the career that he really wanted, and that was to become a member of the LA City Fire Department. He was the luckiest guy to find one of the kindest women to live a beautiful life with, the partner that would support every wild idea he had. She stood with him as he pursued his goal of becoming a firefighter. Kate and Rick would build a beautiful family together. They brought to this world 3 beautiful children, Jake, Jackie, and Julie, who most notably was known as Mrs. Puff, because he named her Mrs. Puff because of how she would get angry and blow up. Rick graduated from the LA City Fire Department drill tower days before the events of September 11th. He served at fire stations 105, 56s, 9s, 70s, and 107s. On Saturday, with hours' notice, my Nina sent out a text saying that there was going to be a last-minute get-together with the family in Ventura for an impromptu memorial at the beach. Over 150 friends and families showed up, friends from every part of his life. And it was a testimony to the life that he lived and how he made everyone feel welcomed, loved, with a generous heart, just as he was raised. Sadly, a few years ago, it was discovered that Rick had a brain tumor. And always the fighter, he told us he would beat it, and he nearly did. He left us the morning of July 22nd, and is survived by his wife of over 20 years, Kate, their children, Jake, Jackie, and Julie, his parents, Rick and Rosie, his brother Joseph, and his wife, Cecilia, and their kids, Joseph and Olivia, his brother Manuel, and his wife Jessica, and new addition to our family, nephew Matteo, his mother-in-law Marianne, and countless friends and family and members of the fire family that shared so many wonderful memories and endless laughter with him. You know, I can still hear him saying when he would walk into a room, "Manika!" And he would just always be the life of a party. Colleagues, I ask that we adjourn today in the memory of my brother and a member of our city fire family, Henry Little Rick Munoz. May God bless the Munoz family, and may he rest in peace.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Mr. Blumenfield?
Colleagues, I ask today that we also rise to adjourn in the memory of Vicki Gilkey. The West Valley lost a very special friend unexpectedly on July 5th. Vicki was part of the Community Development Redevelopment Agency that came to Canoga Park to help bring it back to life after the 1994 Northridge earthquake. She was part of a team that helped correct structural damage caused by the earthquake in many of the buildings along our great street, the Sherman Way corridor, which runs right through the heart of Reseda. Her actions helped lead the way for the creation of a business improvement district and helped Canoga Park become part of the National Main Street program. She was an integral part of bringing the Dia de los Muertos, the family festival, to Main Street Canoga Park, along with the Canoga Park Farmers Market, now in its 21st year. Vicki was also part of the All-America City designation to Atlanta when Canoga Park was nominated and subsequently won the All-America City Award for Los Angeles in 2005. She received her undergraduate degree in sociology from UCLA and her MBA from Pepperdine. She was always kind and such an integral part of the community, and she cared so much about the community. Her encouraging behavior was infectious, as she got so many people engaged in Canoga Park and beyond. Not only did we lose a wonderful person in Vicki Gilkey, but we lost a pillar of our community. There will be a celebration of life for both Vicki and her mother Lois, who sadly passed away shortly before Vicki on Saturday, August 21st at 11. And the celebration will be on Saturday, August 21st at 11 at the Lincoln Memorial Congregational Church on Arlington Avenue. May Vicki Gilcray rest in peace.
Thank you, Mr. Blumenfield. Mr. Whitley Thomas?
Thank you very much, Madam President. Permit me to adjourn in memory of the following individuals. First, Ms. Dove S. Pinkney, who passed on June the 30th, born with a great degree of gratitude. She was a beloved resident of the 10th District, an active community member and advocate. She assumed leadership roles in the New Frontier Democratic Club, the Talladega College Alumni Association, and the Delta Sigma Theta sorority, a member of the Crenshaw Subway Coalition, and she represented in a powerful way. I ask that my colleague Marquise Harris Dawson join me in adjourning in memory of the one and only Dove S. Pinkney. May she rest in peace. Madam President and colleagues, I would like to adjourn in memory of Vivian Elaine Dixon, affectionately known as Aunt Dolly, who passed away on July the 4th at the age of 89, born in Longview, Washington, and relocated to California in the 1950s. She went to law school part-time while working full-time and then passed the bar on her first try. She just had it like that. She was also a skilled quilt maker and a cook of gourmet meals for friends and family. She endured with courage and with bravery cancer, Parkinson's, and dementia. She faced these with the kind of fortitude, humor, and unshakable faith that is noteworthy. And for the past 4 years, she made the best of life, attending a jazz concert here and there, taking trips with family and friends, and more. She included a lot of things, an occasional expedition into the mall for some retail therapy, as it is often described. Aunt Dolly was both the subject and purveyor of great laughter. She loved life, and getting vaccinated was never a question for Aunt Dolly. She did what she had to do. She hung tenaciously to life, and long enough to see Juneteenth become a national holiday, and long enough to celebrate her birthday at the first family gathering since the pandemic began. She will forever be remembered for her wit, her intellect, her her grace, her kindness, her thoughtfulness, her generosity, her elegance, and her talent. I wish peace and comfort to all that she inspired. Make this presentation of adjournment on behalf of a grateful family, and most specifically Celeste Rose and Vincent Harris, my former chief of staff. May Aunt Dolly rest in peace and in power. Finally, Madam President and colleagues, Pastor Marvin E. Dean, a gifted preacher, writer, lecturer, researcher, and lover of education, the oldest of 11 siblings, born in Tyler, Texas, and made his way through that part of the country to Southern California in 1955, settling with his family in Compton. He attended Enterprise Junior High School and Compton High School, and he pastored in Los Angeles for many years at the Live Oak Baptist Church. He was a member of the National Baptist Convention and was there in service as Martin Luther King Jr. served as the evening keynote speaker, a memorable occasion that Pastor Dean often referenced. And so he made his mark. He married the love of his life, Ella Jean Oliver, in 1965, and they were blessed with 5 children, and went forward recently celebrating 60 years in the preaching ministry, and in 45 of those he had the distinct honor and immense responsibility for pastoring 5 churches. Politically savvy and clinically, civically involved, he did what he could to create an environment that would improve our respective communities. He served the present age. And upon retiring from pastoring, Pastor Dean and his wife joined the Mount Sinai Baptist Church. There he served as the pastor of education and continued his ministry as an evangelist and lecturer at churches across the country. I'd like to say, Madam President and colleagues, he left an indelible mark on the lives of many and will truly be missed and never forgotten, especially by his family, his loved one, and the parishioners of the respective congregations that he served. May he rest in love, peace, and power. Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Willie Thomas. Mr. Cedillo?
Madam President, Diane Barnwell left us and left Mount Washington on May 17th, 2021. As you know, Mount Washington has a rich tradition of civic engagement, and she was part of the creation of that ethic. She was a head of the Highland Park Improvement Association, a nonprofit organization in the Northeast, and under her leadership, they conducted the first surveys of the historic homes and commercial buildings of Highland Park. She was a founder and created the Highland Park Heritage Trust. She was involved in the preservation of the Southwest Museum as that site, the original site created by Charles Loomis. She leaves as her legacy the saving of the Lowry's site over on San Fernando Road. She is noted for being very thoughtful about preserving the history of that community and played a major role in that in the 80s and the 90s. Later, she finished her years of activism beset with Parkinson's. She served as a physician training program at USC's Keck Hospital. And so her life was a life of civic engagement, civic participation. She's created legacy behind her, and she will be sorely missed at a time as this city, and particularly us in the Northeast, grapple about how to move forward, preserving our history, but also with an eye on the prize to look forward. We will miss her keen leadership. We will miss Diane Barnwell. She was 82 when she left us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cedillo. Seeing no other adjourning motions, our meeting is, oh, Mr. De Leon? Do you have an adjourning motion?
I do. Thank you very much, Madam President. I adjourn in the memory of Liliana Martinez, a Boyle Heights resident. Liliana passed away just a few weeks ago, July 12th, 2021. She was born on June 18th, 1961, and this woman, Liliana, dedicated her life to advocating for and bringing resources to her community of Ramona Gardens. Now, a lot of us know folks who have very little, next to nothing, and will open up the refrigerator and give you everything. We also know folks who have everything, have so much square footage, and won't even give you a second of their time. This is a woman who gave everything to everyone. Liliana was a huge youth advocate, and she was one of the parent leaders who helped form the creation of Legacy LA, nonprofit youth agency in Boyle Heights, adjacent to USC Medical Center and across from Ramona Gardens. She was also one of the core adult organizers for the Invest in Youth campaign that helped advocate for the creation of the Invest Youth campaign for City of LA through the leadership of Councilmember Monica Rodriguez. She died unexpectedly. From what we know, and one of the LAPD commissioners let me know via a text the moment it happened, Luca Lanche, because of her roots in Ramona Gardens. It is a tragedy because Liliana leaves behind 3 daughters, her son, and 7 grandchildren. Her impact will be felt for future generations to come in Ramona Gardens, Boyle Heights community. May Liliana Martinez rest in power. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. De Leon. Are there any other adjourning motions? Okay, seeing none, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.